I think it's 9 o'clock. We're ready to go live and Hack Studio Raw. Mm-hmm. Right, raw. It's just the way that it is. Hey, Internet, Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for, and that makes you immortal now, and he's not going to be long. Anyway, and wrapping up that veil of tears you see out there, ushering in a life of the world to come filled with innocence, righteousness, and blessedness, all for free, all a gift to you in him, for us, together. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
We're going to be taking your questions with some Bible answers, a bit of our nonsense as we try to find our way through the madness of the present age. I was just thinking this morning about people who I knew who died before 2020. People who were either like someone I knew personally, right, who was like around my age, a very prominent local figure in his mid-40s, dies in 2019, right? And then also the other one that kind of came at the same time was Kobe Bryant, who was one of the most famous NBA players of his age, of his time, my age. Born same year I was, entered NBA high school, graduation year of me.
Wow.
And so I always kind of had this affinity, like, oh, Kobe, like he's amazing, and he's my age. As long as he's still playing, I got a chance, right? But anyhow, he dies in this tragic helicopter crash in 2019, I believe. And so here's these two men who lived the entire experience that I lived in America, and they never saw the red pill. They never got that moment. Mm-hmm. They just got to die in kind of peace, as opposed to walk through what we've been walking through.
Yeah.
And there is some news today that's worth talking about in this regard. It is news that was released mostly yesterday afternoon. Of course, if you're following news sites that care about keeping you somewhat informed, you probably know this. If you're following your regular news, they might have mentioned it in a blip on like the national news, but I doubt they're going to be giving you everything that it means. And I can't promise you that I know everything that it means, but just first off, recognize, this happened on a Friday afternoon. Just that, for the news cycle itself. Did it have to happen on a Friday afternoon? And the story is pretty clear. No, it did not. So what happened? Silicon Valley Bank, which let's just take a moment here and make sure that we show off the fact that it's no small bank. If you've never heard of Silicon Valley Bank, well, 2023 Forbes America's Best Banks Top 5.
Okay.
Went bankrupt yesterday. Completely shuttered.
What?
Billions of dollars of assets. Largest bank closure since 2008. Second largest in the history of the country, I think. I might be wrong about that one. It's awful close. The FDIC, the Federal Insurance Company for banks, has already stepped in to ensure that FDIC insurance will be there. So on Monday morning, everyone who has accounts with this bank or its affiliates, which is a wide net of things at this point. These banks are not just like by themselves. They own smaller extensions and whatnot. Wide set of companies and affiliates that are tied into this. Everyone's supposed to be able to get their money back, but here's something you really got to know. The FDIC insurance, you always see that little seal, FDIC insured. Okay, that's up to $250,000 per account. So if you're Airbnb,
oh no,
or Robinhood or Dropbox or Shopify or Etsy, or countless payroll companies that do direct deposit electronic checks for all manner of corporations, including also then half of all of last year's best Silicon Valley startups, all of their funds. Not quite that. That's another piece of news that connects to this. So the point is, like, there's a lot of money missing, and it's going to take a little while, but it's everywhere, this money that's gone. And if the U.S. government tries to step in and just fill the gap with an interest rate game or a money printing game like they did in 2008, well, it's anyone's guess whether that works. It's clear from 2008, if you're paying attention, that's kicking the can down the road either way. So this is 2008. This is the collapse from 15 years ago that we did some electronic money magic to stave the debt off and make it appear on the faith and credit of the U.S. government that everything was fine. But hey, how trustworthy is the U.S. government at this point and its numbers on anything? And that's part of the issue here, right? So who's going to step in and trust the claims that are being made about, this is all going to be fine, the government will take care of it. Some other pieces you might want to know that are kind of fun. Several major individuals high up in this corporation, Silicon Valley Bank, CAO, CEO, those individuals over the last 2 weeks have been selling a lot of their stock. Just lots of it, like millions of dollars of their stock. I just kind of liquidated 35% of my holdings. I had no reason. Nothing to do. I have no insider knowledge whatsoever, but sorry if you bought it. Yeah. So that's happened several times over the last couple of weeks. And then just in case it wasn't, clear enough, the current chief administrative officer of Silicon Valley Bank was the chief executive officer at Lehman Brothers in 2007. Oh. So one of those guys who got bailed out and made a lot of money after everyone else lost money, he's going to do it again. If you care to watch. Now, here's the thing. Evil men do evil things. Mm-hmm. What I want you, listener, to do here is two things. I want you to recognize that this could be a major snowball into avalanche moment in terms of the U.S. dollar. That's right. I skipped the one thing. That is interesting. I'll come back to that. This could be that moment. It could not be. Mm-hmm. But we've always been kind of like aware that there could be a big hit. Well, this could be it. But the other thing is to know that because you are a Christian, that Jesus Christ has tomorrow well in hand for you. Mm-hmm. Right? So yeah, you might not be able to get your direct deposit next month. Your company might give you some sort of IOU or wait till 3 weeks from now or who knows what. And what I want you to do is in that moment to remember what you've practiced the last how long you've been watching and praying the Psalms with me. Remember that. Right? That's what we're getting ready for, is the moment when it comes and it seems like it's too big to deal with, which this could be, this could not be. I don't know. It seems like awful big news to me. But I don't know. I'm not Jesus. If it is that bad, if things start to break down, if there is food lines and runs on banks and closing stores and nothing's getting sent where it should be, Jesus has a plan for you in all of this. And you're here not to lose your head, but to turn to him in prayer, know he's going to answer, right? So I think this is a huge moment for the world, probably, maybe, I don't know. The other piece of a connection point. So there are a couple attempts at creating what's called a stable coin. And a stable coin is an effort to tie cryptocurrency exchanges to kind of, what do we call it, legacy currency exchanges. Can we call the dollar legacy currency? And to tie it in a very direct way. And so what a stable coin does is it pegs its value to the dollar so that one of these stable coins is always worth $1. And so it follows. And I don't know all the science and the algorithmic brouhaha behind how and why, but basically they're never supposed to move off each other. And one of the major ones did. It just completely went down to like 80% on the dollar and didn't come back up. And that's not supposed to happen unless something's really, 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 really going wrong, right? And so something's really, really, really going wrong. Financial assets that are supposed to exist are just numbers on people's screens, and someone's going to get left holding a bag somewhere, right? Will it be you? Oh, maybe. But your bag is going to be small compared to others. Again, remember, you got a more important reality, which is that the kingdom has come into your world already. And frankly, you can take no money sack, just a staff and a pair of sandals, and he's going to take care of you. So don't worry so much about it, except for that. I mean, well, fret not, it tends to evil. But let this be a moment where you, again, if you haven't red pilled yet, start watching here. Start paying attention. You don't have to watch a lot. You don't have to be on the news all the time. But recognize that there's a leak in this Titanic here, and this one's is a big hole. They might patch it. We'll see. But it could be the unwinding of a lot of the international financial system, which is going to have blowback on our economy. Oh yeah, absolutely. In tremendous ways. So that was yesterday. Friday afternoon. They've been selling stocks for 2 weeks, but we'll let everyone know on Friday afternoon. It just see the wickedness.
Something about Friday, like there was something about Fridays that
one of our friends just texted the question, please? ? And I'm like, what? So you can keep talking. I think I can get there. Unless you can read that.
He just needs the hymns for tomorrow.
Oh, I don't. He's probably there.
No, he needs somebody to grab the bulletin for him.
Okay. Well, I can do that later. Yeah. Continue on, my wife.
Does Friday not have anything to do with Wall Street? Like, I mean, I was under the
point
impression
is
that
that
there was a big... There's
it just
a
closes.
day.
It closes on Friday.
And
then there's 2 days off. So what they did was they waited until right before everything was over so that nothing else that would fall out. There's going to be a bunch of other bankruptcies
I see what you're saying.
on Monday.
Now, yes. Okay. I see what you're saying.
And you have 2 days to kind of... So for themselves, this is really good. But for the news cycle, again, who's watching the news on Friday night? Does Grandma Smith have any idea? No, she does not.
And
there are bank runs. There were bank runs on Friday. Actual bank runs. People standing in line trying to get money. It looked like the 1930s.
Oh.
Does Grandma Schmidt know? No, the news is not going to tell you because it's Friday night. So they're, on the one hand, they're avoiding major information spread about this, while on the other hand, they're buying themselves time to hide their deeds in darkness. Right?
Yeah. So, because when you go bankrupt, it's not like you're doing the calculations and then you push equal and there's zeros.
No, you've been managing debt for a long time.
I realized today or 2 weeks ago. This isn't getting better, and now we have to do something drastic.
When you're dealing with a bank,
yeah,
you're watching those numbers so close, nothing's a surprise.
Okay.
And what banks do, banks don't just manage, well, they do. They manage money. What is money? Money is debt. The banks manage debt. And so some of what they're doing is trying to balance their asset against a loan that they can then loan for more. Yeah. And it's all a game. It's a little shell game they play with each other, right? Mm-hmm. Because of that, I mean, there are theories out there on monetary policy that say, okay, you can do that for so long and it will work and then it will collapse. There's no avoiding that. And then there's theories that say, we're new, we're different, we're smarter now. We can figure out tools and tricks for stopping these things. But it looks like, again, it's just what's going to happen is that when you loot the currency itself, mm-hmm. the currency loses its value. When you build a house on debt, someday someone who owns more than you might call due on your payment. And if you can't turn around and provide that $3 million in liquid asset immediately because you loaned it over there and then you're waiting for this over there and this and that, right? So that's fine. You say, hey, buddy, we're friends. Let's wait a week. We'll get it in a week. And they make their backroom deals and all this kind of stuff. That's been going on for years. Yeah. They've known, they could see how weak it was. There's no way. Maybe they're denying it to themselves. There'll be a way out. Oh, we'll figure it out. I don't know. But no. They made millions of dollars and the bailouts are going to give them bonuses. Last time bailouts were bonuses for these same guys who broke the system. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's almost like they did it on purpose. I didn't say that. I'm no conspiracy theorist.
So as I've been studying, different ideas about building a community or what it means to be in relationship as Christians. One of the things that pops out over and over again is an opportunity in moments like this for us as Christians to stand out. Mm-hmm. And you touched on that. You said this is what we've been praying in preparation for. Mm-hmm.
Possibly. Yeah.
Essentially. And so, so we don't have to join the chicken with its head cut off chaos, but we can stay steadfast, and people will see that mm-hmm. and they'll feel it, and they may not respond with positive emotions towards us. There might be names that are given to us mm-hmm. because of it, but we can rejoice when those names or labels are given to mm-hmm. us, because then we know, yep, it's working, essentially.
So if I look at this from a kind of just a random imaginary perspective, and I think about the power that the woke engine, mm-hmm. which is a religion of zealous hatred for Christianity, the power it has amassed to itself politically, which is all tied to the dollar financially. Like, one of the ways God could basically keep the woke movement where it is, that mm-hmm. is congealed and corrupted and collapsing cities, is by making it impossible for them to afford to go and spread it anywhere, right? They would try by their message, but again, they can't enforce it. Mm-hmm. The weaker the dollar is, the weaker the enforcement of any of the laws in the United States are in any place. The state, of course, is going to be different state to state. The local county is going to be different county to county. But the point being is, so, we're praying for God to stop this madness that's going on. Well, I mean, this is what it's going to look like when he does it. If the Bible's Old Testament is any sign, right? I mean, clearly it's about Jesus' temple being destroyed, his body, but everything else is like a picture of that. The body has to be destroyed. Which one rises? Oh, Jesus. Then he's the real one. But everything else, they're pictures of that collapse, right? They're pictures of that destruction. And so, when the poor and the downtrodden who are righteous cry out for salvation from the wicked, sometimes it's fire that comes, and sometimes the city that you're living near, it actually gets conquered and burned down, and you watch a bunch of people have horrible times. And then you show hospitality, you be gentle, you stand upright and know that God is for you, not against you. If you got to die, do it with your head held high, knowing you're precious in his sight. You're going to get a whole lot more back, but then trust that there's a good chance he just wants you to survive this so that the faith can be passed on a generation or two more. And what he's going to do is remove those who aren't doing that. And that's not up to you. You don't get to make that call. You don't get to decide, if I'm going to chase the vengeance of God and remove No. He will remove those who need to be removed so that his church can prevail over all things. We are his footstool. He rules with an iron scepter. He is not partial whatsoever when it comes to the laws and the governments of men, right? He is certainly, you could say, in his mercy, he is partial to you. I'd be very careful with that, though. But the fact that he is merciful to you he is uniquely tied to you. He has a focus on you that is not on the wicked. This is a gift he's offered to all people, though, too. So he is impartial. He is impartial in all things. And so the U.S. has no special thing. We were a Christian country. That should make us special? No. When the Christian country falls and becomes wicked, it's more likely to be destroyed because it's doing it in his name, right? So he can't let this stand. And don't be too surprised. I don't know. Part of me is like, it's a dream. On Monday, it'll all be fine. Don't worry about it. Go back to sleep. But this one's big. This just seems really big to me.
Yeah.
It makes the catechism controversy again sort of like, that's a big deal too. But are we ready for this, guys? Are we ready for this?
I think the big deal about the catechism is more how it's being dealt with.
Truly.
And so, therefore, let us learn our lesson. How are we going to deal with this? You talking about standing with your head held high made me remember, do you remember our little tiny duckling Chocolate Chip? Oh. And he was so cute.
Vigilant even in death.
We had, 12 ducklings in this batch?
Dozen ducks.
And one of them was the tiniest, and he was a little runner duck. So instead of standing kind of horizontal with his back horizontal to the ground, he stood upright. And
runner ducks are cute, man.
They are really cute.
I'm sad. We lost all of them.
All of them. Yeah, even the second batch.
Yep.
Anyhow, we
could try again with one.
I've thought about that.
Not
because
12.
Lorian, we have one duck left from all of these ducklings we raised.
Original batch, escapee, was not killed by the monsters, almost died again, didn't. What a survivor, this little duck.
We thought for sure we thought for sure this winter had her, and nope, she just returned to the dock yesterday.
Yep.
Lots of rejoicing.
Story about little
Chocolate Chip would stand upright, and he'd sometimes stand in the corner upright, like looking in the corner, while the rest of the ducklings were doing their thing.
Tiny little thing.
Yeah. But you could put him on your hand, and he'd stand straight upright, like a little Copperton soldier.
He was a guy. He's a male.
Yep.
He's very alpha.
And some sort of creature got into the duck house one night and just destroyed
all but 3 of them.
All of them.
2 of them. 3 of them.
Yeah, the ones that were left alive were severely wounded, and we tried to nurse back, but that didn't work. Anyhow, little Chocolate Chip, unscathed, totally perfect, pristine condition, but standing upright, however, not. He was falling over, but he was just in this stiff little
so cute.
Position.
So sad.
Even to the end, he just stood there. And it was almost like he had a heart attack. Like the creature didn't attack him. Yeah. He just, well, brothers, I guess I'll go too. And then fell over standing upright.
That was such a sad, sad moment. I was unprepared for that day.
It was all part of the walk.
Yeah.
But
God, there's some pain there though. Still, I can feel that if I let myself. Hi, everybody. I cried about ducks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the first animal that you had really taken. You had one of the ducklings. Well, we all had a duckling or two. And that was the first time that you'd really opened your heart and let. That's right, because you had one and I had the other of the remaining 2 ducks. And then the kids each had 2. Oh, friend.
Lower back is having some issues. Just keep going. Ignore me.
So, so yeah, you'd finally allowed yourself to open up and care.
I mean, one of the values of letting children raise animals is to confront death. And that was, aside from like a grandpa who I didn't really know, I guess grandma had died before that, but that was so long coming. I just had never seen premature death.
Right.
And wasn't prepared for it. I mean, all the deaths in movies don't mean nothing, right? That guy dies, they died, this died, death's just everywhere. Well, everyone died. Okay. Well, I'll go home now and eat some cookies. Like you get desensitized. And then when it really is there in front of you and the body isn't going to go anywhere and you can't walk away from it, even if it's a duck, it's but it's like cut up and like limping and flopping on the ground because it's not dead yet. I mean, it broke me. It broke me. And I guess I needed to be broken a little bit, or I needed to know that I was that easy to break.
Yeah.
But, well, that was one I wasn't planning for. Been trying to use this back injury that I've got, minor back injury that I've got, but laid up a little bit here to think about old pains and release them in the pain. In that sense, be like, okay, so this pain and that pain, they're similar. Do I have to hold on to this? No, this pain's not going to go away, but this other one that's just in my heart, do I have to? No, I don't have to feel that right now. Okay, I'll let that go. And it's not like it'll never come back, but it's a way to kind of use the anchor of the real pain to force feel some old wounds. So thinking about Philadelphia and thinking about Portland and thinking about St. Louis and
then St. Louis again
in California. Well, it was, but just those words: Philadelphia, Portland, St. Louis, California. Those 4 words sum up a lot of pain for me. Not any individual needs to feel identified by any of that. It's just the complex scenarios that led from one of those places to the other and all that. So anyway, trying to make use of this time of incapacity to meditate, contemplate upon old wounds.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
To forgive.
I think that's one of the most helpful things that I learned when I was in the throes of raising tiny children was to give them emotional identification, not for themselves. Well, okay, to just be able to identify their different emotions. So I think we tend towards telling people, oh, don't be sad. But it doesn't help because if you are sad, you need to walk through that whole emotion and to be able to say to your child, you're angry right now. And it's okay to be angry. I understand you're angry, but you don't get to hit me when you're angry.
Right. Right.
That type of dialogue between the kids. And then as they get older, they no longer have to have somebody else identify what their emotions are. They can tell you, I'm sad. Right. Oh, well, why are you sad? Tell me. Right. Why are you crying?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty underrated part of parenting there, to teach the child what the feelings are and be able to name the feelings when you have them so that you might learn how to express them. Because all of them need expressing, including anger. But there are ways that hurt and there are ways that help. And so anger's a tough one, but it needs to be expressed. It needs to be felt. And so to do that, you got to know what it is. You got to be like, because I don't know. I used to say, I'm not an angry person. Well, my behavior didn't exactly always line up with that. And I've met others who are like, oh, I'm not an angry person. And it's kind of like, well, God, you always look angry. You always act angry. You always talk angry. So like at least 80% of the time, you come off as angry. So maybe you are angry and you just don't know how to identify anger.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my problem. So I'm not trying to point fingers anyway,
Right.
but I don't think I'm alone.
And I mean, there are the negative emotions, emotions that we would label as negative.
Mm-hmm.
There are also positive emotions, though, that you'll tell you. I've heard children being disciplined for their excitement instead of, oh, I know you're excited right now, but we have to be respectful of the other people in the area. So we have to keep our voices down, or, guide them through. Yay, it's exciting. Good. This is a good thing. But this is how we act when we're excited, instead of sit down and be quiet.
Right. It's not wrong to feel happy.
Right.
But maybe your happiness is not what everyone else feels, and so it's not always right to share it at full voice. Right. Yeah. And how do you teach a child that?
I mean, maybe you're happy that there's a trumpet solo in the concert, and so you're looking forward to it. But
woof woof.
Everybody else is quietly listening to the concert, so we can't jump up and down and cry out loud about the trumpet solo coming. Yeah. So, do you have things that in your little pile that you were wanting to talk about?
No, it's just to fall back on if we needed it.
I was curious. This past weekend, there were several discussions in our home about a topic that is, the topic is dating. And what does that mean? And as we were talking about it, I was like, wow, this is something that I think there's a lot of confusion about in our culture, and especially in the Christian church. Like, what does dating mean to the Christian? And I know that you have your video, Not Until I Say I Do. And I had every intention of going back and watching it or listening to it so that I could know exactly what you say in it and we could talk about it, but I honestly didn't get a chance.
Yeah. I don't blame you for not having enough time to be on the internet more.
Yeah.
The more you get off, the less time you have to get on it. I tell you.
It just isn't.
The world just fills up with things.
It doesn't drive. Yeah, it's not like a driving force anymore, and so you have to actually remember.
Or make yourself. I guess that's been the hardest part about this next piece of earth is I just don't want to be on the computer.
Yeah.
And I need to spend an hour and a half on the computer. And I don't want to do it. It has nothing to do with the story, really. It has a lot to do with the time on the machine. So, never mind. It looks like he found them, our blessed musician. That distracted me. We
were talking about dating.
And you were going to say more, though, about...
I thought that it would be a good idea for us to just talk about, like, how should young people who, let's say we have in our home junior hires, we have high schoolers, we actually have elementary school kids. And then over at the Collegium, we have early college, we have master's program. And it's a common courtship, dating, finding the one that God has created for you to live the rest of your days with and create a family with. Like, that is a common topic on young people or unmarried people's minds. And so what is a good way for us to even look at, like, what is dating? What is courting? What is engaged to be engaged? Yeah,
no, there's a lot of made up stuff, and we're largely just living on what Hollywood has taught us to think is normal at this point. Because I think in the history of mankind, there have been numerous attempts at solutions to this, and almost none of them are good luck at college. Like that, here, daughter, I hope you make it. Like that. Yeah. That's not usually been the approach. But and because of that, though, I don't know. I think it's a hard topic to start in on. What I want to say, I guess, first is that there was a book that achieved some popularity back in the late 90s called I Kissed Dating Goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
And you can read that book and you can find all sorts of theological errors. If you want to be a Lutheran about it, go ahead. You can critique it, write an essay about how it's wrong, about justification, and lots of other things. The real premise of the book, however, is that dating's broken and we need to do something different. So I'm going to try not dating. I'm going to try something else. I don't know what it is. I'll call it courting for fun. But, what is courting? I don't know. You can do some research on the history of courting in America and call that courting if you want. The point to me was not even, I'm going to go back to the 1890s and do it that way. The point was, I'm not going to do what everyone else is doing.
Okay.
I'm just not going to do it because it obviously is dysfunctional and destructive to most people. Now, there's some people who find out and they end up with great marriages out of it. God be praised. He works through the darkness. But for most people, it ends up being a path of tears, confusion, and divorce is really where the majority end up at this point. So to me, that idea of kissing dating goodbye is about recognizing that whatever the world is saying, it doesn't matter. Shut the world up and start asking the scriptures what truth is. Now, when you go to the scriptures and look for advice on dating, you're not going to find a lot of it. You will find advice to young men to believe they are strong and that they've overcome the evil one, right? You will find advice to young widows that they should get married and have kids because it's a good thing. You'll have advice about how to decide whether or not you want to get married at all or whether you want to commit your life to just being single in the name of Jesus and that's okay too. You find a lot of different stuff in there, but what you don't find is like, fathers, here's how to have your son find his bride. I mean, you can send him to your cousin in some other land and hope that, he finds her by a well or send your servant to do it or whatever. Like, that's not the advice that the Bible's really giving there. So you're left a little bit more just to the path of wisdom on this, which when I say that, I mean, you can't have a bullet point prescription because it will fail you in some moments. It will tell you to do the wrong thing. Wisdom recognizes that sometimes you have to turn right and sometimes you have to turn left depending upon where you are on the map. And so you can't just be like, well, right-hand turns are always better. No, they can be. I mean, they're definitely easier. You can do it at a red light. There's all sorts of reasons to like a right-hand turn. But, if you only take right-hand turns, you're going to go in a circle. So, what is the real replacement that we're trying to get to? And that's the foundational question. So one of the issues with dating is the very concept of dating is that it's a pastime that is for fun and it's largely based upon attraction. Just that alone fundamentally means, yes, don't need that. Don't need any of that. So let's ask a different question. What do I want from my daughters? I want a man who's better than them than I am. That's what I want. I want a man who loves Jesus and is better to them than I am. That's what I want. I want them to find that. So the question of how do they find that? That's the question I want to answer. And is just courting? Well, courting is the only way to. I think that's a little bit narrow-minded. But what is clear is that the family must become more of a hedge around the individual, male or female, but female especially, more of a hedge around the individual so that nobody is left alone to try to determine the character of another person who they also happen to be sexually pulled to at the moment. That's kind of impossible, really, right? In fact, some of the pull might be the worst family patterns that you have to pass on, and that's the very reason you like the person. And you can even find that if you'll slow down enough to ask yourself about the guilt trips or whatever else you're doing to try to get them to like you. You're already working the patterns. And so the family as a hedge together, openly talking, there's no sort of like hierarchical dictates going on. It's about the family seeing itself as a unit that is there for the preservation of a certain way of life, a certain way of mind, which is the mind of Christ in the Christian family, and that what we want is to pass that on to the next family. How? I don't know. I don't have a word I can use. They need to mix with other people. They need to be able to communicate with other people. They need to be able to do this in such a way that they're not dating. Because if they are dating, then they're going to be trying to have fun and have sex, because that's what dating is. And so, like, you can say we're going to date differently and we're not, but I guarantee you're already holding hands. I guess you're going to do it. And so, and it's not that holding hands is evil, it's that it muddles your ability to properly distinguish who you're talking to.
Well, and if you're holding hands, like, why are you not just engaged? That's my question.
Yeah, because you're dating.
Or if you're hugging.
You're not ready for that, and all this stuff. And so dating implies this other stuff, like I'm not ready for marriage. I'm dating, there's just a, so I guess what we want to do is find
clarification.
What we want to do is we want to find faithful marriage partners, husbands, wives, for our sons and daughters, we know that there must be, therefore, some place where they are in the where they're near others of their age, preferably with certain values that are shared, faith that is shared. And then when they find someone who they think, oh, then from that point on, there is best a conversation about it involving both parents and the child and then the other person, in which it's just kind of all above water all the time. You can call that courting, and in some ways it is, but I think courting, again, just has far too much kind of legalese to it. All we're doing is, as a family, wanting to get to know the person as a family because we're going to be a family. Right. Right? Or are you just leaving? Is that your plan, just to take my daughter and go? Well, I'm going to tell her not to, at that point. So you and I have talked about this before and on the show in other ways. I think one of the easiest ways to kind of cut through all of this is hard, I don't know what to do, how do I make a decision, is the idea that letters are super powerful and super real. That the power of the pen is way underestimated and is nothing like the power of the text message, which is far more disruptive. And so even if you live 3 blocks away, why don't you just see each other at church and write to each other every other day for 2.5 months? Give that time to thought and conversation that doesn't involve physical proximity, that therefore doesn't involve quite the onslaught of sexual attraction, and see who that person is. See if they can even manage to write a whole sentence. Because for our daughters, if you can't write a sentence, I'm afraid they're just going to be bored with you. It's just part of who they are. For someone else, maybe it's important that all you can do is write. You both need to write in crayon sentences, but, work on that. The idea of the writing is that it creates distance while it creates intimacy at the same time. And there's this kind of a potent, natural reality, almost miraculous thing going on there. And so once you've mixed, while you're kind of courting, the idea that you really want to get to know someone, find out what they write, because that's what you can't write something that, I guess you could have someone who's a complete fake. He's a phony. He's going to trick you with all of his letters. It's possible. Most guys aren't probably on that road right now. My job is to become a forger of love letters. They probably don't have that capacity to even think like that. In fact, what you're going to do is you're going to scare off all the guys that aren't worth it when you say, yeah, you can write me a letter. No, you can have my number. You can write me a letter though. They're going to be like, no, you're not worth it. And then you're like, yeah, you're not worth it then. So, that's kind of where I'm sitting, and without wanting to lay out an ethic. Other than that, the current ethic is bad, and we should avoid almost all of it, because you just go down the line. Where's the good? Where's the good? Oh, you'll get to meet a lot of different people if you date. Well, maybe. And why is that better? Is it better to have more options or less options? Now, I can answer this question without having to share my opinion, because there is research data on this from a psychological perspective on how more options impact you as a buyer of goods at the supermarket. And I'll tell you what it gives you. More stress. More options is not better for the psyche at all. Far better to have 2 options. Very easy. You pick one, you're going to know which one you will not be disappointed, probably. It's not like, I don't know which one. You get 15 options, you're like, I don't know what to do. It freezes you. It freezes you. And so the idea that dating is better because you're going to see more people is on the surface just kind of a fallacy. Yeah. It's a logical fallacy. So it's the same question I have for entertainment on TV. What good does it really, what fruit is it producing? And so the whole thing as a tie-in to the 1960s sexual culture is something that we just have to reject and build something else. What's that other thing? I don't want to name it. I don't want to label it. I don't want to say there's only one way to do it. I do think it involves family.
Yeah. The recent, you said that you didn't want to put ethics into it, but there is an ethics that seems to be being pushed from the world, and that is that instead of the man being the one that makes the first move, now it has to be the woman. And that's disturbing to me.
It's pretty pathetic.
multiple reasons.
It's just pathetic.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about a collapse in civilization? Like, there it is, right there.
So as Christians, as people who recognize that headship is a good thing and we want to reclaim that, giving into that idea is not going to help us.
So when I say I don't want to create an ethic, what I mean is I don't want to make up rules where there aren't rules. I don't want my way of applying what is a total truth become a representative of the total truth.
Right.
I don't want my tradition to subvert the word of God.
Right.
Right. And so I want to be very careful about, well, how are my daughters going to get to know men? Well, that would be my tradition. Okay. Right. But that doesn't mean that there is no ethic that must exist and cannot be let go of underneath family. Like honor father and mothers right there. Right. So the ethic of the Christian moral system, I don't like to call it a system, moral compass, moral walk, the walk of the Christian is to live, because the word of God has determined what that is. Like that should go underneath the entire thing. And so, yeah, if you're going to ask any question about the man or the woman, like the answer should be driven by what the Bible says about man and woman. And if the woman is supposed to follow the man, which is kind of the whole summary of the headship family thing, right? Submit to your man just kind of means follow him. Like it's not like grovel or anything like that, right? I mean, I don't mind it when you grovel, but she doesn't grovel. I really like it when you follow me, though. It makes me feel good. If the woman's supposed to follow, well, then how can that happen if she leads the first step?
Right.
From the very beginning, he's going to rely on her leadership. Unless, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you really like the guy. He's really amazing. You just kind of are available.
You're just
like,
making yourself available.
I'm not saying that that's wrong, but to teach that it is the role of the woman to go first is just to confess how upside down the world has become and how close we are to a civilizational collapse. Because when your women are ruling over you, it's a sign that God is not with you. And that's Isaiah, so deal with it. That's not my opinion. Yeah. And I mean, truth will tell. It's going to come out one way or the other. Golly. Yeah. I've been listening to a number of these music artists that had confabed with Toby Mac, a guy named Willie Echo. And he's got a song called When the Truth Comes Out. He's more of a remixer. And so I don't know who's actually the singer of this song and all this, but the song on the first listen is kind of like, why would a Christian be involved with this? Because it's all about how I know what you did. And no matter what you do now, when the truth comes out, it'll come back on you. And at first I was like, this is kind of harsh. And I'm like, oh, it's about Judgment Day. It's about being okay with being wronged because Judgment Day is coming. This is an awesome song. Yeah. When the truth comes out. Yeah. Willie Echo, check that one out as a rec. But that was connected, but I don't know.
Well, one other thing that I did want to touch on, because it came up in our conversations around the dinner table, was the idea of so if two Christians from different congregations end up getting married, then whose congregation do they end up going to? And
that's a stupid question, is where I start.
Yeah.
Like, there could be good, godly reasons for either one. To have a moral, this is why I don't want an ethic. That's creating an ethic. Where'd you get the commandment? You're making commandments up. From a headship point of view, does it not make sense for the woman to join the man? Yes, of course it does. But there could be all sorts of reasons why that doesn't make any sense. Maybe she's got alien parents, he doesn't. They want to live near their alien parents and take care of them. And that's just something they're committed to. Well, that's awesome. You know, so then you join that. I mean, this is why making rules for, come on, back up. If you have bylaws, get rid of them. Like, you don't need bylaws. Bylaws are rules about the rules. Like, making rules about the rules only leads to more consternation and stagnation. You end up being just flummoxed because you can't ever do it right enough. And so when you're going to talk about finding a spouse, in this day and age, don't make up rules that don't exist. You need to find, if you want one, you need to find one that is sharing your faith and your worldview. And the thing I haven't said yet, which I firmly am just banking on, like to the park and back again, they're going to show up because I'm asking Jesus for them to show up. And I'm asking with significant regularity. I'm the annoying widow in the morning. I got a series of prayers, and at one point every day, it's like all 5 kids, spouses, Christ have mercy. No, please. Like, I can't do this. I can't make this happen. This world's insane. But he built them as they are.
Right.
They're a gift. He's got a plan. He's got it figured out. So, like, from that back end again, it's like, okay, so if a mixing event opportunity shows up, mix the event. Hold the line as a family. Understand that it teaches the child to believe they're of value, right? And that value should not be sold lightly just for someone's attention, those kinds of things. And then that a big part of that value is their identity as Christians, as a family of Christians who believe that there's nothing more important than passing that on to the next generation, because all the stuff we build, it's going to burn, and the people don't have to. And so let's have people and take them with us, right? Letting that be your nugget, like, I don't know. So there's a singles event. Go to the singles event, right? Oh, there's a Christian dating app. Sure. Why not? Like, it really doesn't matter, provided your foundation's fine and you're not making an ethic. Well, the only way to find a Lutheran single wife is Christian dating. You got to do it that way. Like, see, again, you're just, get out of the legalese. Get out of the, there's one way to do it mindset. Get into the, I walk in grace. I trust who my God is. So let me remember those things that are essential and not forsake them. And no, he's got it. He's got it covered.
So to the one who is just burning with this desire to have a husband or a wife, and there seems to be nobody in sight, your advice is pray.
My advice is pray.
Jesus to send the one who he has created for you.
And my advice is to ask him. There's one of two things. Okay. And you got to, sorry, I'm having a back moment. There's one or two things that are probably realities. Which one is it? You're not ready. You're not ready. No. You'd ruin it right now. So, like, what have you not repented of? I have nothing to repent of. Well, see, careful there. Maybe you're right? Maybe it's not. Maybe you are ready, because there's another option, right? But the first option is you're not ready, and it's a psychosocial reality. You got work to do on you. You want to have a good marriage? Start working now. Did you read Boundaries yet? Right? How much are you in the scriptures since you're single and got nothing else to do? Right? Like, are you ready? And the other one then, I'm pull it back. Is that you got something else to do? Like, between now and when you get married, like, you're going to cure cancer, or, like, I don't know, not necessarily, but, like, you're going to help an old woman across the street who otherwise would have died and share the faith. And then she's a Christian. I don't know. Like, there are other things God has planned for you today than that. So all of your consternation is amounting to covetous sin.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that God won't give you what you're asking for anyway. But then trying to force the issue isn't so good. Yeah. And better to say, oh, look, maybe the reason I'm not ready for marriage is because I'm discontent being single. I don't know. I do know from my own perspective, it was like 2 weeks after I finally had that happen in my life. You walked in, and then I was in the last place on the planet that should have like just happened. Right. And so it was a part of recognizing that I needed to be okay without somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. And so the person who's like, but I want to be, well, then you're not okay. Like, you're needing a God, not a spouse.
Yeah.
And so striving to be content with God, knowing he's, and this is where then again, so you're 22 or 17 or whatever right now, like get off the crisis bandwagon. You got 60 years left probably, and we could all starve this week, but we got 60 years probably, plenty of time for God to bring someone into your life. Why are you in such a hurry? What, you need sex that bad? Like, man, I understand, but like, really? No, really. Why are you in such a hurry? What's so bad about the moment? You don't have a baby yet? Okay. Like, why don't you just believe it'll happen when God wants it to happen? And that'll be awesome at that point. And that like today's awesome too if you'll just stop trying to make it tomorrow.
Amen.
Right? I mean, it's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's a hard one, but it's pretty imperative. My Saturdays have gotten much better since I stopped trying to do more on them. Right, so we got the show in the morning, we got church at night, and we got a 2.5 hour break, give or take, after lunch. And I'm always, every week, I'm like, get something done during that 2.5 hours. And every week I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, I don't know. I gotta, blah, blah. And then like 3 weeks ago, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be tired. I'm going to let myself be tired. And yeah, whatever. I don't care. And like suddenly Saturdays are just kind of nice.
Yeah.
You know? Why? Because I was just letting them be what they were.
Yeah.
Stop trying to make it something it's not. You know, it's not Tuesday. I got blocks of time on Tuesday where my best mind and brain power can go all into a project, right? There's just no time for that on Saturday. Not going to be. I could work in the yard when the weather changes a little bit. When the weather changes, the back is better. Right? That kind of works different though, right? But also the freedom to you know, as a pastor, you know, take that nap to prep up for that late evening work and all that. But not trying to make it something other than it is. So again, you know, the normal way of like all of human history is you get married and have kids. So to worry that it's not going to happen to you is like kind of the most immature of like self-centered, like you're watching the TV and not the world. Right?
Well, maybe stop watching the TV a little bit,
but,
you know?
Well, the reason, I agree. But the reason I say that is like, so the way the TV forms your idea about marriage is like it's this special thing and it's really amazing and people are sad until it happens, then they're happy. And like, but you don't know, maybe you'll, you know, where is your soulmate? This nonsense about soulmates, right? And when if you put away that type of story and you just look at, okay, in the history of the world, did most people get married or not get married? Like by a vast majority, most people just got married. Well, okay, so stop worrying that it won't happen to you, right? You're going to die too, like most people, right? All people, you're going to die too. There's things that are just going to happen. You don't have to worry about them. Sun's going to come up tomorrow. Like, why are you worried about it? Don't worry about it, right? So that would be where I would encourage, you know, the youngins to be. And now on the other side, I understand why from a human perspective right now, if you're a young Christian of any stripe, wanting to find a young Christian of similar stripe, like you got a small market. Like our parents didn't have kids.
Yeah.
The few they had, they didn't teach. They sent them off to become woke. And now here we are. So, I mean, it is what it is. How about Jesus is still in charge? How about he still knows your days? How about they're all written? How about he gives a good wife to a man who fears the Lord? That's a proverb, by the way, that she is a gift to him. And so like, stop trying to make the gift show up. And girls, that means you're the gift. God will give you to him when he's ready. When he's ready. He might not be ready. You might be ready. He might not be ready. But my guess is if he's not ready, you're not ready. You tend to be on kind of similar paths, but they're like positive, negative in a electrical sense, right? They're polar paths, but they Lego up.
Right.
Yeah.
So then what would you
Male
advise?
and female, look at that. Yeah. Just like the electrical.
What would you advise if our son was like, Father, I mean, this is down the road a little bit.
I would hope. I mean,
11-year-old.
Give me my inheritance now.
I've met this girl and I'm interested in getting to know her. How should I go about doing it that would be something that would bring you honor, Father?
Right.
Because that's how he's going to speak to you.
Oh yeah, right.
Deo Volente.
Look, I'm crazy, right? Just if you're watching still, like I decided a couple of years ago that is going to be all in on what the scriptures say, regardless of how stupid it makes me sound. And it's not to say that this is what scripture says, but like the result is this, right? Son, you got a girl, you like her? Write her a letter. You haven't met her yet? I don't care. Write her a letter. Make it look nice. You know, I don't know. Put a gift card in. I don't know. Like write her a letter. Like who's going to be mad? Oh, I got a letter from this guy saying he wanted me to write him back because he thought I was amazing and a Christian. I mean, like if she's like, oh, man, he should have texted me. Well, great. Then you don't want that girl.
Yeah.
Right. So,
so if you go to a singles event and you see girls there that you're like, oh, I'm curious. Well, then write them a letter.
Yeah. So you've talked all night with this group of people. That one girl's had your eye. Get your wingman, get a buddy, have him stand like 5 feet away from you so you can see him and she can't see him. That way you don't feel alone, right? And then walk up to her, smile, and say, hey, I really liked your answers tonight. And I was wondering if you'd mind, exchanging mail sometime. I know it's a little old fashioned, but I think letter writing's kind of cool. And, I'm a big 1800 junkie. I like old school stuff. I use a quill. You want to see my quill? No, don't say that. Just say, I wouldn't say, what's your address? Like that might come off wrong, right? Just so like, where do you live? Like, don't ask a young girl where she lives. But if I want, would you mind if I sent you a letter? Would you mind if I wrote to you? I'd love to write to you.
Yeah.
Oh, here's my text net. Can I write you a letter? I would like to do that and leave it at that. Walk away. And I honestly
suppose you could even ask just for her church address and send it to her through the church.
Well, you could say that, like if it worries you. But assuming you've had a good conversation, she's going to be excited. She's not like, oh, he's a weirdo. If you're the weirdo who never talked to her and then did it, she might be like, I'm not sure. But that's on your own growth and maturity.
Yeah, no, that's
showers are important. Haircuts are important. I mean, even if it's long, it needs to be under control. Brush your teeth.
Clean your
shirt. Yeah. PJ bottoms are right out, right?
Yeah.
There's all that side of things too, which I don't know. In my experience, there's someone made for everyone, and it's always amazing once they link up. You're like, oh. Well, there they are.
That makes sense now.
2 in a pod. Yeah. Look at that. And, so again, since that's the way it tends to be, like, stop worrying about it so much if you're just 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah. Ladies, until you're like 34, right? And even then, it ain't over.
No.
So that's when the market is definitely diminished by that point. But, and guys, I mean, late 20s is not a problem. Unless you need to marry a 17-year-old, then it's a problem. But, there are plenty of girls in their 20s and 30s, early 20s. Mm-hmm. And there are girls in their 30s who are repentant of where they got too. And they'd like to step back and, consolidate their debts and get out of that workforce grind that they thought was going to be such a blessing that turned out to be just a grind. And so don't give up hope. Ask Jesus. Keep your eyes open. And then, make use of tools that allow you to really get to know the person.
Yeah.
Watching a movie together will not let you get to know anybody. Talking about the movie after the movie, more than watching the movie, but it's still not going to do that much. It'll break the ice is what that'll do. But having to like exchange correspondence about daily life in handwritten form for several weeks, it'll be hard to hide. It will expose who they are, or you're going to know they're hiding. They won't say anything. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, they're not saying anything. Well, dry as a leaf.
Well, it's interesting. I think I've realized that the art of letter writing is somewhat
lost.
I don't want to say that because it sounds so finite, but I think a lot of people don't understand that in a letter you don't just talk about yourself. Like if somebody writes to you, you respond to what they said. Oh, you went on vacation. Where did you go? That sounds like it would have been a great trip. Mm-hmm. Or, your grandmother is ill. Are you good friends with her?
I feel like there is a publication of letters. I feel like it's the love letters between John Adams and his wife.
Oh, yes. I think you're right. I think
so. I recommend that to guys. Girls, probably good for you too. We should maybe get a copy for our kids.
That might be a good idea.
But
and at least to have over at Hebron if this is what we're encouraging young people to do.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a way to kind of see what the medium can do. And at the time, it was all they had. But man, it made for better people. I don't know. Man's evil in all times, and we're able to corrupt just about everything. But
there's a question from Well, Don't Do That.
Oh, really?
And this person says, would you take out a P.O. box for your daughter so as not to expose your home address?
Yeah, no, I would personally, I'd involve my church. I'd just say send the letter to my church. And I think any member could do that, more or less. No church secretary, because they get a letter, is going to be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, she's going to be like, who's this from?
Oh, you got a letter.
Oh, another one this week. No, I won't tell anyone, I promise. So, like that's what I would do. I mean, you could definitely do a P.O. box if you had a big enough crew or whatever. And I wouldn't be, too worried about exposing the private address. Depending, again, did you trust the guy? I mean, or was he weird? And so give him the address, let him write to you.
Yeah.
But I think it's weird for a guy to walk up and just hey, where do you live? Like that's probably not the opener, right? May I have your address? Like it's a little forward. It sounds forward until you say why. Oh, I want to write you a letter. Oh, how quaint.
Yeah.
That's almost romantic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
No one takes us up on this. I don't know why. I mean, we have been saying this. We've been preaching this to people we know, and everyone's like, nah.
I know.
Why
it's
is
really
that?
Interesting.
I can't go back and do it
I've
again.
been told that it's too forward. It's like, well, you met this girl. You thought she was interesting. Well, just write her a letter and tell her. Introduce yourself.
Well, that gets back to the girls coming forward versus the guys coming forward, who's sending the first sign message, and how all of us guys, unless they're picked up by their frat brothers and taught otherwise, are trained to wait until the girl gives a signal that she's interested. We are too afraid of rejection to just go out and risk directly.
So that's a real thing, because that was where my question was coming from. Like, really, truly, is that what we're supposed to do now? I mean, it seems so backwards.
Okay, so like, here's the thing. Okay, so I'm at a coffee shop. You're at a coffee shop. I like you. I'm watching you. You know, you're kind of. I think, and I catch your eye, and we both look away, and we're both nervous, and like, okay, so she looked at me, and I look again, and I see her, and you're ignoring me. Modern man says, oh, she's not interested. So if I see you again and you look and you kind of smile and then look away, oh, now I know to approach. Thing is, winner male, guy who wins, guy who gets the girl, when she looks away and doesn't smile back, guess what he does?
He just goes in.
He just walks up, talks to her anyway. Right? And we're just missing that heart.
Yeah.
Chief of sinners, I can't go back and practice. I got mine, so I don't need to. Although it's like, where did that, I want that heart. I do want that heart. That's like, oh, I'm not good enough for you? Yeah, you don't know what you're missing. I'm going to show you right now. When we had Ben Austin, Canine Professional here, I really enjoyed Ben Austin, Canine Professional. He was 5 hours of pure entertainment is what that guy was.
It was kind of an exhausting day.
He never stopped talking. It was so much. I'm taking notes.
I could not physically process everything fast enough.
No.
Yeah,
he was a very intelligent man.
Sprayed by a fire hydrant.
I highly recommend his services. I need to use him again, actually, because our leash is broken, and that'll be where we'll get the replacement leash. But one of the things he said in the middle of the day, and he said it to you, and I caught it, and I was like, oh, that was forward. And he said something like, he referred to Ben Austin in the third person, and then he said something about how an acquired taste, but addictive. You can't get enough of it. And he smiled at you. And I'm just sitting there watching. And I'm like,
what did I do?
I don't know.
This is like a surprise
yeah,
party.
It was more, it was like, I think you just kind of missed it again. Like you were overwhelmed.
I was on like 5 sentences back, just processing.
But
what
was going on what, I don't think he was actually making a play for my wife in front of me. I don't think that.
I would hope
he
not.
definitely was flirting in front of me. He looked at me right afterward, and I smiled at him because it was like, I saw what happened, and I thought it was kind of interesting. What he was doing was being confident. He's like, look, this has been a long day. You've had a lot from me, but the thing is, you keep working with me, you're going to find out you like working with me. He just said that to us, right? And so that kind of confidence in your capacity to prove yourself after the first rejection, because the first rejection is based upon assumptions, all of us Christian men could just use a little more of that.
Right.
So let's ask for that. And it's not only about dating. It's not about dating at all. In fact, it's about risk taking. It's about success in business. It's about everything, right? Can you take a punch and come back? Or does every single failure weaken your poor little resolve so you have to go find your safe place and suck on your security blanket for a while, right? And which makes us not so different from the woke crowd at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's true.
Should get off my soapbox.
I think I've brought it out of
put
you.
me on the
I mean,
soapbox.
I've said, please teach me here, because it was disheartening to hear what was being taught to young Christians today. And I didn't quite explain before we started talking about like whose church do you go to. The encouragement was to go to the girls' church, and that it just, from a headship perspective, to put that kind of like rule down, that doesn't make sense at all.
And it bothers me in this way, because what you do is you ensure that the mother-in-law will rule the family. You ensure that at that point, especially if that's a rule that you say is the, and again, I said it's a stupid question. There shouldn't be these kinds of rules, but now you're going to make a rule, and the rule is going to lead to matrilineal control of the clan. So you've got a rule that's a direct reflection of the woke Antichrist, which is destroying all things at the moment. Yours is just a very kind of sad LCMS version of that reflection, which can't actually come out and be woke. Although, and we got to, is it the first question? It is the first question. Let's just do this question. This one, it fits right in with what we're doing.
That's exactly what Sons of Solomon is working to fight against, is the
True.
matrilineal mindset of today.
Yep, that we need men. So here's a question. Our LCMS Church Council is looking to allow women to be voting members, currently not allowed as per bylaws. I used to think there was nothing wrong about women voting, but as I've studied my Bible more, as well as the history surrounding women's suffrage in the United States, I've come to the conclusion that women should not be voters in the church, but rather leave it to their husbands. I'm the only woman that I know of at my church that believes this. Others think I'm very archaic in my thinking. I read 1 Timothy 2, 1 Corinthians 11 and 14. They are in support of this. Do you think that women having more authoritative roles in the church, including voting, has contributed to the problem with men abdicating their role, not only in the church, but in the family as well? How would you recommend I proceed in my church on this issue? And if approved, is it wrong to choose to not participate? Look, you don't have to vote. Like right at the end, you don't have to vote. Like, it's really okay. Okay, I'm so flummoxed by this, and here's the main reason. Okay. If you're a congregation in 2023, now deciding for women's suffrage, you're done. You're over. You're done. You're so out of touch. You're so far gone. You're so bigoted you waited this long, you racists. And that now here you're going to do it. It's not going to please anybody. It's not going to fix anything. You're just putting more poison in the well. So it just blows my mind that you could be so ignorant as to think that you got this far, 2023, and now's the time for women's. 2023, it was the 60s. Like, oh my goodness.
I had to look at the question a few times. I was like, LCMS? Is this what? Oh, wow.
So it blows my mind that we could be so dense as to be that far behind. They think they're forward. They think they're doing something progressive, right? It's like, holy moly. You asked the question, are women abandoning the role ultimately? Yes. Are
women abandoning
their roles in the family? Will this lead to that? And the answer is yes. It is that in one very real way. So before we look at 1 Timothy 2, 1 Corinthians 11, 1 Corinthians 14, all of which are fine, but none of which talk about voting, here's kind of the thing, right? Let's back up a little bit. There's no voting in the Bible. Like, none.
What is casting lots?
Throwing dice.
Okay. That's really weird.
Lets God make the decision, doesn't it now?
Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah, it's kind of, it is kind of a thing. So there's no voting in the Bible. Someone says Acts 6. Okay, Acts 6. Acts 6, the apostles need to have some more preachers who also handle the food distribution for the women. So they ask everybody to bring before them several men who they know they've tested, right? Okay. And they bring forward 2, and then they cast lots again, right? For the 2, I think. Oh, goodness, I should check that again. But the point being, though, there's no vote It's not a vote. It's not a voters' assembly. It's not a manner for doing business in the church. There's none of that. The voters' assembly it arises out of a lack of a state government to control the church, and of people in the 1800s not really knowing what to do other than mimic what the society around them had, which was voting. And it's a way for individual educated people to have a voice and protect their say and their rights. Okay, that's fine. I'm not saying that voting is the wrong way to run the church. I'm saying it's not the right way. Like, it isn't right or wrong. It is a way we've decided to work together. Okay?
Yeah.
So now we've decided to do this thing where we all get to have a say in the thing before it happens, except if you are a minority and disagree, you're going to lose. And now we want to say, can women get in this conversation? Okay? Can women get in this conversation? And the reason is because the men don't care about the women, right? Because if the women aren't there, the women won't be protected.
I think that's so sad.
So the assumption from the beginning is that the men aren't doing their jobs, and the women need to be there so the job gets done. I'm just going to say, again, let me suggest to you that this is a sign of the end of your group. Whatever your group is. Right. If it is a Christian group, this is a sign of the end. It doesn't mean it's the cause. It means like you're already lukewarm. You're already being spit out. And this is just going to kind of facilitate your heresy as you go, because you're going to be focused on, what really matters is equality in voting. Like, that's what matters. If we don't have that as a church, we're not really church. Wait, you just made voting a mark of the church. It's not in the Bible. Like, it's not there. It doesn't tell you to do it. So like, it's fine if you want to do it, but it's the whole thing's a red herring again. It's a smokescreen. Now, okay, if we go to let's get this over here. This is 1 Timothy 2, which she mentioned, where Paul says that he would hold that women adorn themselves in modest apparel with propriety and moderation, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly clothing, but with that which is proper for women professing godliness with good works. And here's the line: let a woman learn in silence with all submission. And I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over man, but to be in silence. So, the debate here is, does that mean women can't sing in church? You can't confess the creed? See, it says silence. Okay, so, you're a legalist and a weirdo. On the other side of it is the idea that this is just cultural and has no bearing whatsoever. And it really is just about Paul's own misogyny, and he doesn't really know what equality is about. Now we do. So those are kind of your two ends to this, where somewhere in the middle, there's just a recognition that, no, really, generally, like, the guys should be the ones talking to each other when a decision needs to be made, whether it's your family, whether it's the church. Not that women can't talk to their husbands, or husbands can't involve the women, but that by and large, their job's not to insert themselves into the debate. Right. Especially if that debate then is in the worship service, which is what 1 Corinthians 14 is going to be about, where following this huge section about what to do with tongues and a bunch of other stuff, and when you come together to worship, this and that. Verse 34 in chapter 14 says, let all your women keep silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but they are to be submissive, as the law, Old Testament, also says. And if they want to learn something, let them ask their own husbands at home, for it is shameful, it says, for women to speak in church. And of course, you have the liberals who say this is an addition to the text and isn't even really part of the Bible. And then you have those who are going to do something stupid and say, again, like, the women can't sing, therefore it has to be wrong there. And they say that so then they can dismiss it, right? They say this means women can't sing, but of course women are going to sing, so we don't have to listen to anything it says.
Yeah, there's a label for that we would just talk about. Straw man.
I think so. You set up a false version of the argument, and you knock it over.
Yeah, and then you're like, yeah, see, so therefore,
yeah. So, but it's pretty clear here that it does think that when things are complex at church and the men are talking, that if a woman wants to learn something or be involved in that, she should speak it to her husband and let him be the voice of the family in that congregation, in that gathering together. This is not necessarily about worship, although in this case it kind of is about worship, but it's about how men and women view their relationship with each other, right?
And so if I'm a 20-something, I went to college and then I got a job, and I'm a woman and I am a member of a congregation, my father is not there, I'm not married.
Yeah.
Who do I speak to?
Right.
Do I go to my pastor? Do I go to my elder? Do I just choose an elder to go to?
Yeah. That's what I would talk to the pastor first, and I would just talk to the pastor.
A fatherly figure that
I mean, you're really concerned about what? I mean,
well, if I were this woman asking this question, and I'm actually a 20-something,
has anybody who's arguing about this been to a voters assembly?
I don't know why we want to go.
Do you? I mean, what decisions do we make at the voters assembly? What is so terrifying that we got to be careful? Otherwise,
well,
there's a level of fear that is not commensurate with the situation we're dealing with here, right? 1 Corinthians 11, she mentions, gets much closer to the summary teaching. I like the opening of 1 Corinthians 11. When we've talked about head coverings before, I'm pretty sure we have no such practice, nor do the churches of God, direct quote from the end of the section. But before he talks about something that's like a local practice, like head covering, he talks about what you're supposed to believe no matter where you are, right? Mm-hmm. And what he says is that, verse 3, I want you to know the head of every man is Christ, the head of woman is man, the head of Christ is God. That's it right there. Okay. So the idea is that man is the head of woman. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now let's take that to where its most clear statement about marriage is in the Bible. This is Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22, where it says, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. And then notice at the end of verse 24, it says in everything. Mm-hmm. So before we answer your what about question about this single 20-year-old who's worried about, I know it's important. It's important, but it's like you're this 20-year-old girl who's worried about what? The budget? Like we're going to pass the budget this year? Mostly that's all we're going to do is pass the budget. Like that's what I mean, maybe you'll build a parking lot.
Okay.
Like,
so maybe they're changing from ESV to,
New King James.
No, NIV,
time to leave the church.
She's concerned.
Well, then you would want to talk to your pastor. First, let's deal with the majority of people. The majority of people in this conversation. The women who are going to get suffrage at this congregation that we're talking about, something tells me they're all in their 50s or 60s.
A little bit older.
And married. Okay? So wives, submit to your own husbands in everything. Please, without trying to be personal about any of this, just run that through. What's a voters assembly look when that happens? Well, what it means is every family gets 2 votes and that poor single girl gets 1 vote.
Yeah. So
you just disenfranchised her by not having her have a team. So whatever you're saying you're doing, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
Or let's say it's not that. Each family gets 2 votes, but they're voting against each other. Oh, look what you just invited into the very heart of your church. Dissension in marriage publicly. Oh, good idea. Great idea. That'll work out. Oh, wait. 60 years later, let's try it now. When we watch the writings on the wall, the whole civilization's collapsing. Now is the time for women's suffrage. We're so forward thinking. You're so archaic. Oh my goodness. Again, racism. Like, I really mean it. Like, you idiot. The bigotry, the actual authentic bigotry that thinks that now's the time. You are so arrogant and hateful. You don't even know it.
Yeah.
True bigot. So forgive me for my energy on this, but I don't like when my civilization falls apart underneath my feet because we reject the order of God. It doesn't make me happy. Mm-hmm. And so to do that again in the midst of the collapse on a side issue that isn't even really an issue. So what about the young 20-year-old girl, maybe Grandma Schmidt, who's a widow for many, many years, and the congregation's trying to decide what direction to go on this, that, or the other thing. Okay, if you think your suffrage is going to stop the congregation from going the evil direction, you got another thing coming your way. Yeah. That's my answer to that.
Well,
that's my answer to that. You're going to make no more of a difference with or without suffrage. What would make the most difference is to talk to the pastor directly about your concern and to talk to other elders directly about your concern. As I'm a single woman, you're the only one, you're my head. My father is not here. That's contrary to nature, but so be it. So I'm gonna tell you I don't like this decision. That's gonna have far more impact than your little vote in the corner when everyone says aye or nay, or the secret ballot, so we can't know that we're all fighting with each other because we all realize we hate each other. Like the darkness that has occurred in voters' assemblies. God, in the name of Jesus too. And it's just it bothers me. It bothers me the idolatry of it all. And the idea that the men aren't going to look out for the good of the women in the congregation if that is true, you need to leave that congregation.
Yeah.
You need to leave. Find another one, right? Move to another country where there's a congregation, where the men care about the Bible and the women. Like,
yeah, I think that we forget that on the other side of the instructions to women about submitting is the instructions to men.
Absolutely.
About loving and sacrificing.
Yep.
And so it's like,
yep.
God's already got
Yep.
his bases covered
And,
here if we just trust.
I believe Paul even says this about widows. A true widow is one who relies on God only.
Yeah.
I mean, she doesn't have a voice anymore. Now she just has God.
Yeah.
Her when the truth comes out.
Oh.
I mean, like, there's glory in this.
Yeah.
There's glory in submission, silence in the face of evil, which holds firm and doesn't change, or even stands up by leaving the evil, which is hard to do. So
her ending question brought just sweetness to my heart. She was saying, is it okay for me to just not go? Can I just refrain?
Yeah.
And I love that you even asked because I've actually been struggling with that. And I don't think, I'm not attempting to turn the Titanic, but I am encouraged by Anna, the prophetess, who was in the temple praying for all those years of her widowhood and her life. And we've been given, I've been united with a whole bunch of other Christian ladies across the world now through Daughters of Wisdom. And so the next time we have a voters assembly meeting, I guess it would just be called a voters assembly. My plan is to go into the sanctuary because it's oftentimes that we have our meetings in like a fellowship Bible study hall area.
The back room. We get our work done in the back room in the church. It's great. Where's the back room? You don't worry. You'll find it.
So I actually talked to my daughters about it and was like, this is where I'm sitting. I just don't feel comfortable anymore. I have in the past just gone and never said anything. But my presence is still condoning this practice because nobody's watching my lips.
So let me be clear. I don't think it's sinful. I just think it's stupid.
Well, and
it's okay to vote. You ladies, you can vote. It's not in the Bible. It just doesn't succeed in what we think it should succeed in. It doesn't do the things we say it should do. So I think but I'm not going to, this is a little different than offering babies to Baal. I mean, it's not quite in that realm.
Right. And conscience wise, I haven't felt tied in that way. But as I look forward to my grandchildren, and I think about like the trajectory that I would like to set for them. Yeah. Now is the time. Yeah. And so I talked to my daughters and I said, this is what I've been feeling. This is what I've been thinking. Will you join me in they're not voting age, but will you join me? Now. Oh, now she is. You're right. In the sanctuary to pray for the men who are making the decisions, for our congregation at large, for the church. And they were excited about that. They were like, yeah, absolutely. And so that's our plan. And then there are some other ladies that I actually mentioned it to, and they were like, oh, I like that idea too. But just to kind of, I'm not going to say that we have to change our constitution, but we can change our practice quietly. And I think that that's what the scripture,
right.
I think that's what scripture says throughout. Is like, if you want it to change, you don't stand up and shout about it. So
I like it, except for this. Here's what I don't like. Your idea is a good idea. What I don't like is it means I'm going to have to talk about the voters meeting when we get home to say what happened, which means I have to live through it again. But
or we could not.
You know what? My guess is they'll go better if you're all in there praying. Like, that's just kind of the way that it tends to work. He's not a vending machine, right? But he does bless faith, and so it's worth a shot for sure.
Well, and our son can go, and so he can tell me what happened.
I want to be clear. I think that voting and the overfixation on voting, men and women, but especially women, is a fruit of the problem. It's not the root of the problem. The fact that they're making this decision in 2023 shows you, like, this is just the fruit. They're just the last ones to blossom with the bad fruit. What's the root? And the root is what you do believe about man and woman. And what you can still have, male-only suffrage and completely get not just man and woman and the orders in the church. If the voters' assembly is the place of power in the church, well, then you've really misunderstood what the church is. Or I remember I remember it was so trained into our friends and family up in North Dakota that they referred to the voters' assembly as the church. They referred to the voters' assembly as the church. Huh. That was church. And then, you go to church, but then the church meets in the voters' assembly. And it's like,
wow, that's really, it's a subtle but really intense distinction.
it really bothered me. And I didn't go directly at it, but I didn't talk that way either. And I realized, this is in the water a long time. You're going to talk about it this way. But that's the root. That's the problem, is that we have confused the power of the pulpit with the power of legislation and vote in assembly, right? Why do we have voters' assemblies now? Why do we need them now? Well, as a nonprofit organization, some group has to take responsibility for the finances and the facilities legally. The whole purpose of the entire organization is that. That's it. Nothing else, nothing more. And so it's about paying the lighting bill, fixing the roof, and that's mostly it. Okay. You don't file taxes, but making sure that you don't have to file taxes. That's basically it. And again, so what's the need for everyone and their mom to have a say in, which electric company we choose, since we don't even get to choose? Like, you only get the one. Like, you can we could have chosen a different, snow plowing company this year as prices went up because of our, all this. You get in a big debate about that. Everyone gets to have. Do you think that's going to make it easier when everyone gets to have their say over which tree cutting company to go with? I mean, what are you so afraid they're putting over your eyes there? You're missing out if you don't get a vote. This is, again, like, what is the power you're so convinced exists in this place, aside from potentially the power to abuse the pastor? And that definitely can happen there. So as opposed to, try abusing the pastor while he's preaching. You see the church and its headship there. And you can do whatever you want in that voters' assembly. If that guy's still talking 15 minutes a week forever, like, whatever he's saying is what's going to be happening. And it doesn't mean he's saying it and you do it. He could be sowing things that destroy as well. But that is what's going to be your root, right? Not, twice a year we go back there and the women get to say, what was line 476? There was like $30 missing there. Where'd that $30 go? Like, if you really want to be in that fight, Jesus have mercy on us, though.
A wise person once told me, if I want to have more of a loving view of my congregation, to not go to voters' assemblies.
The worst comes out, there's no doubt.
But then as I was talking to you, and closing up my last comments about, like, well, if our son is going to go, so he can tell me what's going on, I kind of stopped while you were talking and thought about, like, truly, I don't need to know what's happening. Eventually
you will want to
it
know
will come
how it
out.
impacted me emotionally.
Well,
and
I will.
The whole point is, if you were there, you would have more empathy for me initially. You would just know what I went through. But that's okay.
But I can trust that, it'll come to me as it's supposed to, because they're going to communicate it to the people who weren't there. And so I'll find out. I don't have to be in the know all the time.
I just can't believe they're doing it now. Like,
yeah, it's a sad turn.
How behind are you? What are you watching? Dear heavens. All right.
Like, what caused them to start thinking, we need to change this?
Heaven help me. Their most recent pastor, something like that.
Oh,
I don't know. But golly, it's too normal. Pastor Fisk, blessings to you and Meridith. I am looking for you to share some of your wisdom regarding finances. Well, I'm not a financial consultant, but I'd be happy to answer your question. I am considered one of the front runners for an upcoming promotion at my place of employment. Although on the surface this seems good at the moment, I'm very content with my job and with the income I'm making. Although the income I currently make is pretty average. Thanks to following the Dave Ramsey plan, our family is now debt-free, including our mortgage, which is fantastic. Oh, come on, I can't get a hold of this. There we go. Even though we don't have new things, all of our basic children we will be blessed with in the coming years. My dilemma is this. On one hand, making more money could allow us to be more charitable to our church and elsewhere, and it would be easier to save for things in need of repair on our home. On the other hand, new card. Oh, I make it too big and it falls off the screen. On the other hand, in light of the verses like Proverbs 30, verses 8 to 9 and 1 Timothy 6 to 10, I wonder if there is wisdom in just being content where I am now, given that our daily bread is taken care of and the possibility that the devil could use the higher income to lead us astray. I do not agree with the extremes of either prosperity gospel or poverty gospel. I also know with this limited information, it is not easy for you to give advice, particular to my unique scenario. I'm not going to be helping you with portfolio, I'll tell you that. That being said, are you able to have a general discussion on this matter and on whether there is wisdom in pursuing or not pursuing additional wealth in certain circumstances, and if added financial wealth is provided to us on ways to help that wealth be a blessing instead of a snare? God bless you both for all you do, Justin. All right. So, Justin, it sounds like you're just thinking things through well to begin with. So I just encourage you to make a call. But I'm going to give you more for that here in a moment. So your verses that you pointed out, 1 Timothy 6, verse 6 through, I thought I opened up the Proverbs. Hold on. Where's the Proverbs at?
It was Proverbs 30, 8 and 9.
Yep. So we're going to go here to get it. We'll start with the 1 Timothy passage, but we'll come back to this. Proverbs 30. All right. 1 Timothy 6 says, godliness with contentment is great gain. That's a great verse. We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we carry nothing out. Having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many pangs. The love of money is a great jeopardy to us. The prayer of a gur is what he references in Proverbs chapter 30. 2 things I request of you, verse 7. Deprive me not before I die. Remove falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food allotted to me, lest I be full and deny you, and say, who is Jesus? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God. Great prayer. One at times I've asked myself why I prayed it so fervently, because it means I'm not going to ever be incredibly wealthy, probably. But here's the thing, okay? So notice how he says neither poverty nor riches. He doesn't say no raises. He doesn't say don't expand my territory. He says nor riches. So he's asking for God to avoid the extremes, right? The extremes. And he's basically saying that whatever you give me, God, let it not be so much that it deceives me and makes me regret or turn away from you, right? Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean that therefore I have to go out and someone wants to give me a promotion and it's not only more money, but it's like the job I really want to do. I can't do it because I'd make more money. That would be going against the prayer of a gur. No, slow down. No. It's okay. If God wants to bless you with money, he's going to bless you with money. The problem is not the money. Look at that 1 Timothy text again. The problem is not the money. The problem is the love of the money. That's the problem. Okay, so what he's praying against here is against the love of money. Now, he doesn't want so much money that he would fall in love with it. Now, where I want to go with though here is a little bit of, let's remember that whatever you have received. There is nothing you get that you don't receive. I like this verse. This sums it all up for me. The cattle on 1,000 hills are mine. There's nothing you have that God has not given to you. And if he wants you to have more, he can give you more whenever he feels like giving you more. I like Proverbs 16:33 in this. This is great. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from Jesus Christ. Right? Who makes those dice come up the way they came up? Every single time? Does that mean you can read God's mind with dice? No, it doesn't mean that. What it means is there's nothing outside of his control. What it means is, and I think Solomon says it differently in another place, that man does the work, but God gives the measure, right? So you can spend 50 bajillion hours on this thing and come up with a 3-hour value project, or you can spend 5 hours on it and do the masterpiece. Who made that happen? Jesus did. Well, okay. So does that mean don't work hard? No, it doesn't mean don't work hard. It just means don't think you're going to work harder to make it better. There's a difference. Working hard is good. Work hard because it's good to work hard, not because it gets you a better result, right? And not because it gets you more money again, which is stored work and blah, 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 the money thing. Like the philosophy of money. We'll skip that for now. Proverbs 23, verse 4 says this: do not overwork to be rich. Because of your own understanding cease. Will you set your eyes on that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away like an eagle toward heaven. So the point is not, don't be rich. Like if God gives you a bunch of money, just know it's not going to last. You put it in the top 5 banks in the world, and guess what? Still not safe. It's still not safe. So don't overwork to achieve something that is not eternal. That doesn't mean don't work for a fair wage. And if you're offered a better wage, refuse it. It doesn't say that, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell a little story. Like, I'm pretty confident if you take a position for the money, you will not be happy with that position. But I'm just as confident that if you take a position because it's what you want to do, and it happens to give you more money, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be, right? But that's where everything else you're saying is about wanting to see this money as the gift that it is. So let's see here. Yeah, I don't know if this next verse. Oh, no, this is more of the same idea. Seeing it for what it is. Men of low degree are a vapor. Men of high degree are a lie. If they are weighed on the scales, they are altogether lighter than vapor. Do not trust in oppression, nor vainly hope in robbery, for if riches increase, do not set your heart on them. That's it right there. If riches increase, do not set your heart on them. It doesn't say don't let the riches increase, otherwise you'll fall. It doesn't say that. God gets to do that, right? God has spoken once, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God. Also to you, O Lord, belongs mercy, and he will render each man according to his work. But okay, so we'll come back to that. I want to come back to that psalm to close this. Because, okay, the love of money is a problem, but the other side of this is something that I think pious Christians need to recapture, and not liking the prosperity gospel, I'm with you, but our hatred of the prosperity gospel, I think, has blinded us to the potential of Christian influence in the present age as the result of prayer and faith. And so there is much to be said for the Christian who considers himself to be a steward of the things that God has given, who sees a world that could be stewarded better. What is it? A lot next door to your house? Something downtown that could be used? I don't know. There's nothing wrong with asking for the chance to influence the world for good. And if that takes money to do it, there's nothing wrong with asking for the money to do the good thing in Jesus' name. You might not get it, right? But there's nothing wrong with asking for it. And so when you're like, oh, if I got a raise, I could give more to church. I mean, golly, how many people have that thought? I think it's a pretty rare thought. It's a pretty cool thought, right? Be a steward of the influence, right? And are you wanting to be rich, or are you wanting to do good? Because it's not wrong to pray to be able to do good. Mm-hmm. And you need certain capacities to do that, depending on what the good is you want to do. And there's nothing wrong with asking for the funds to make that happen. Jesus has all the money, all of it. And so once you're like, oh, it's his, but, oh, Jesus, don't you normally like the Proverbs say that this would be good, but it's bad, but I could make it good. Can I have the resources to make it good so it fits with what your word says? That would be good for my neighbor. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I really want to encourage you to kind of come out from under the shadow a little bit here and stand on the grace. The main questions I have for you specifically are, you mentioned that it's a promotion. Like, how different is the job? So I'm going to use an example, and this may not be you at all, but like, if you teach math and you've been teaching math for 15 years and you love teaching math and you get a promotion to be the principal, like, you get more money, but that's not the same job. Like, your life's about to change radically. You sure you want that? Like, administration, I get it. It's more money, but have you seen the bags under those people's eyes? I mean, seriously, that job is hard. So, like, what's the difference? What's the uptake? What's it going to do to your family? The exhaustion level or the travel or any of the other things that come with this job? Those questions matter to me. Impact on time and joy, right? What's it going to do to your time and joy? You're content now. If the money alone were the reason to take the job, I guarantee you it's going to impact your time and joy negatively. But if the job is actually a job you want because you think you could do it well and benefit the world through it, well, I mean, Jesus just gave you a promotion. Like, rock on, take it, go, run, do more good, right? So, yeah, that's I think most of my answer there. I was going to come back. I was going to come back to this last. Look, it's not wrong to want prosperity. Check it out. Psalm 144 needs to be prayed by all of you. Much. Jesus, my rock who trains my hands for war. I love this psalm, but the end of it. Why do I want to be rescued and delivered? Why? Right, verse 11. Rescue and deliver me from the hand of foreigners. Verse 12. What am I asking Jesus to do? That our sons may be as plants grown up in their youth. We want our sons to be strong. That our daughters may be as pillars. Oh, your puppy's making noises. Yes. What's going on? Oh my. That our daughters may be as pillars sculptured in palace style. I love that. So they would be these beautiful supplements to the structure of our life together. That our barns may be full, supplying all kinds of produce. That looks like a prayer for prosperity to me. So this is where the thing is. Like, it's not wrong to pray for prosperity because it's in the Psalms. So you can do it. Dear Jesus, make my barns full, supply all kinds of produce, that my sheep might bring forth thousands and 10,000s in my fields, that our oxen might be well laden, that there be no breaking in or going out, no outcry in our streets. Why? Because no one needs to steal because you got enough to share because it's all working out. Happy are the people who are in such a state. It's not Illinois. Happy are the people whose God is Jesus Christ. I think this is a prayer that is worth praying. It's there for you to pray. It's not wrong to pray it. And so if God answers it by giving you more, say Alleluia, and then see it as stewardship for the kingdom. And that kingdom means your family, yes, but it also means your church. It means your neighborhood. It means all of the above. I mean, yeah, you want to know who the wealth really hurts? Is the kids, right? That's what happens is the things that you think are new become what are normal for them, and the expectations of a life that is worldly just kind of can take root. So, being careful with you say you live on certain means, you don't have all these new stuff. How much new stuff do you start buying, right? Is it suddenly all about the new stuff? Doesn't mean it's wrong to buy new stuff either. Yeah. God likes to give gifts. It's okay to have a sweater. It's not wrong. Mm-hmm. Where is the wisdom in all of this for you? It sounds based on your question that you're thinking this through. And what I would encourage you to do is to make a choice based upon the workload and the job itself, and how it's going to impact your family in terms of hours, and not worry about the money so much, because the money's there to share. And so if you get more, it just means God trusts you to share it. And what if I don't? Well, do. You don't have it yet. Don't worry about failing before it's here. Yeah. So can I take a little break? Can you talk for a few moments?
I guess I'm going to.
I need to move.
Sure.
My back.
Yeah. So I don't even know that our viewers know that your back issue happened.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Soon.
This is probably one of the worst injuries I've seen him get.
So stiff.
I've never had to, put his socks on before. It's just, no, you're not in the car. Oh, now you are.
I'll be back in a moment.
Yeah. But it has been training for both of us to kind of slow down a little bit and recognize each day is a gift. And what is my role as a wife? What did I say I do to when I married him 21 years ago? And it's not always about like how the other person makes you feel. It's oftentimes if we focus on our service to the other, then you will recognize more clearly what the relationship actually is. I recently was reading a book. Actually, it's by our very own LCMS members and published by CPH, called Ladylike by Rebecca Curtis and Rose Adele. I think her last name is Adele. Well, anyway, sorry, Rose. But I was reading about how women are pressured by society to, their example was to eat the whole pie of life and try to become all things. And so oftentimes it is like a pie eating contest where at first it tastes good and it's enjoyable. And then all of a sudden you feel like, the pie has lost its flavor and you're starting to feel a little sick and you can't progress forward. And that so much is how we as women tend to look at life. Like, I have to do all of it. I have to go to the gym and look a certain way. I have to have children that behave a certain way. I have to keep a career that will give me a certain social status, and all of it I have to do perfectly while going to church and being devoted and reading all the things that I'm supposed to read and praying all the prayers I'm supposed to pray. And we just can't physically do it all. And so the end result is tired, stressed people who end up missing out on the little things in life because we're so focused on the big picture, the whole pie. And so their encouragement is to look at and thank God for the smaller services that we are able to do, the things that are put in front of us that we don't have to go searching for. So like sometimes women will say, well, I want to help people, so I'm going to go be a social worker. Well, you can help people in your family, even if you don't have a college education, or you don't have to go out to seek people to help. And there's also this idea that, well, if I'm smart, if I'm intelligent, then I have to make sure that I am a good steward of this gift. And there's a lot of pressure to meet my full potential. And the idea behind serving your neighbor is that because you have been given intelligence, you are then given this opportunity to help somebody who's in front of you right now in a way that they really need help. I was thinking about there's a shut-in in our congregation that I have been visiting with, and she has so many different ailments, diabetes, struggling with cancer. She's on oxygen. She can't walk easily. She can't hear. She can't taste because of chemotherapy. She can't see. And I thought, Lord, why do you keep her here? Why not take her home? And then I realized, well, maybe it's so that I get to meet her. I didn't know her yesterday, but I know her today. And maybe he kept her here just so that I could have a time to interact with her for a minute. And then she would influence my walk. And my walk will influence the walk of others. I don't know. I don't know what his plan is.
Well, it's kind of like there's this little bit about the poor too. Like the point of giving to the poor, Like the guy on the street who's homeless and asking for a handout and you give him a can of fish or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The point isn't that it's going to fix his life or make him better or do anything. The point is that it was good.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to result in good to be good. It was good. It was like God. It's what God does to us. Is he does good without needing a result.
Yeah.
That's the way he's always been. It's the way the gospel works. As you were talking there, I want to make clear, that we're not against educating women.
Oh, no.
What we are against is debt, slavery, dowries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I fully believe all 4 of my daughters have the capacity to ace whatever college they would go to. I'm just skeptical that the college is going to teach them anything of lasting value unless perchance they happen to be just the person who's going to not get married and be a orthopedic surgeon or something like that, right? Some high end, but like, since they all kind of want to have kids and love the idea of generational dynamics and houses that endure more than one generation, why would we saddle them with $80,000 to $100,000 of debt to go into a marriage that's going to compel them to have to be away from the very thing that they want to do? Why would we not try to get them an education that will serve their tasks? And, as really valuable as Anthropology 101 might be at your freshman college course or whatever, I think, children who can read and use the library are going to be capable of doing quite a bit. And just to be very, very forward with you all, I don't think anyone who watches this show is like, Meridith's not very well read. Like, I don't think anyone's going to think that, because you're always bringing in new books all the time. And just to be very clear, she's a college dropout, right? She's actually a high school dropout. She's got her GED. She didn't even get her high school diploma. She's doing fine.
True.
She's doing fine. Is she making money? Is she the CEO of a Fortune 500? Who wants to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company this week? Goodness. No, she's raising 5 amazing children and at the heartbeat of a Christian community here in Rockford. And so, you don't have to have a degree to be smart. I mean, what a lie that is. What an absolute lie
your
that
brain
is.
doesn't just get used outside of the home. And that was the point. I guess
right.
It's
not like managing the home's easy.
Right. If you're actually going to do it,
Right.
it's a quite full-time job. It's like full and a half-time job.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it with wisdom, so that there's a trajectory for your family to, follow and then succeed beyond what you've succeeded in the ways that you've succeeded, then absolutely you need to use your brain.
There's a local young lady who's going to the local junior college in order to get a degree in animal husbandry, working with cows.
Oh, okay.
And the whole reason is because she wants to marry a guy who's going to raise cows. That's cool. So it's not about just you can't get educated. The question is, what are you doing following the herd into death? Mm-hmm. And is there a wiser way to prepare yourself for what you really are going to be doing?
Right.
And if you got the time and the space, and your junior college is a completely different beast from your, for your send-off universities.
Right.
You got the time to learn some nursing skills or who knows what. I don't know.
Absolutely.
So,
there are classes on all sorts of things that you can take and be at home still under the headship of your father while you're learning. And then you can have dialogue with your family about all of the different influences that you're going to come into contact with.
Correct.
If you go to any sort of school.
Right.
I suppose, even a Lutheran school you're going to get opened up to different worldviews.
I'm not sure there are any Lutheran schools the way you just used the word. There are schools that have Lutheran heritages, but I'm not sure there's any that are. You find the most Lutheran of any Lutheran university, and you're going to find that the majority of the student body is not. And that's going to be who your kids are going to learn from, a lot of what they learn.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but the pressure that I have received over the past 21 years to go back and get my degree because I'm smart, or because, why you can do more than just be a stay-at-home mother. It's refreshing to have other women and I don't know if both of them have their degrees or what, but I know one of them does for sure. And then the other one is a prolific writer from home. But I think they both have degrees. Anyhow, to have them say,
Excuse me,
like, it's not necessary for you to follow, like you were saying, follow the herd into on a specific path in order to be a good steward of this brain that God's given you. And that there's like so much guilt, so much guilt that's woven into that statement of being a good steward of what you've been given. And
standing grace.
I loved, one of our daughters was asked, well, are you going to go to this college that's opening up out in Wyoming? And she was like,
we hope, we pray,
we hope.
Deo Volente.
Yes. And for her, she was like, no, I don't need to go to any college because I can just teach myself anything I would want to know at home. And so, and she currently is doing just that. Like, she's studying psychology right now, and she applied some of the knowledge that she's picked up in psychology at a gathering last night. When asked a question, she was like, oh, well, I could answer this way. And then that person would think this, or I could answer this other way. And it would lead them to realize that I'm actually meaning this and very firm in my conviction. So she... so she used her learning from home to apply what she'd learned and interact with somebody else. Whereas speaking with someone recently who's gone through the system of like having a psychology major and so forth, and asking, well, how does this circumstance psychologically impact a person? And the answer is, well, I don't really know. I can't really tell you, because what the textbooks that this student was exposed to said just didn't prepare him to actually apply it to real life. You know, he's more like, well, I could go in and be a human resources person and know how to write out some sort of guidelines for how people are supposed to behave at work. I'm like, wow, that's a long 4 years.
That reminds me of, so there used to be these like motivational posters. Remember those, right?
Yeah.
And they'd have like a word and a picture.
Be positive or whatever.
And then there was like a whole series of like cynical.
Yeah.
This, before memes existed.
They were memes.
But they were memes.
Essentially.
But yeah. And one of them was like expendable. If all it takes to encourage you to do a better job is a stupid poster, then you probably do a job machines will be doing tomorrow.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. So, yeah. It takes incredible intelligence to manage at home. One child is worth all the time in the world. One child is not normal unless it's not normal. And so, expect to have more and to give those children full attention and the best leg up on not just can they multiply. That's important. But can they talk to other people? Are they emotionally strong in themselves, or are they easy to manipulate? Can they take care of the yard, right? Can they balance a checkbook? Like, it's endless, the kinds of things that need to be passed on. And to try to squeeze those into 30 minutes while you're munching on hamburgers between sporting events every night is very difficult to do that. So I've said this before, like, I don't think that we're just like righteous in what we're doing. I think I'm lazy. And so I take the path of least resistance. Almost all I spend hours trying to figure out how to save a couple of seconds. Okay. Yeah. That was my way. And so this is just like, look, you can do it that way, but man, is it hard. Man, is it hard. And so why do it the hard way? Why not do it the easy way? And the easy way, the simple way, is to believe that for all of our children, boys included, the four-year university system is an option that is only really necessary for certain professional tax with a T, and really is almost detrimental to the faith in many other circumstances. That was, I skipped the faith. You want them to have the faith at home.
Yeah.
And so, you're only going to go into that environment if you are prepared to navigate that environment as a battlefield, to come out of it with certain skill sets that you're gonna save for Christianity while everyone else forgets how to do them. There was a bit of news this week about a Southwest Airlines pilot, and I don't know if he was speaking for more pilots or just for himself, but he came out pretty loud about the new focus standards of Southwest Airlines for pilots in terms of their preparations for flight and stuff like that.
Okay.
And effectively, there is time being given to woke political agenda within the flight plan reality. And he's basically saying, like, for years and years and years, the reason there is nothing but the flight plan is because if you do it differently, people crash and die.
Oh, no,
and now they're throwing political liberal agenda into the mix, brainwashing stuff into the midst of these check engine 3 stuff, right?
No.
Now, I don't know exactly how it's really happening. I'm using examples to try to explain his complaint. This is a guy high up in the company. He's saying what we're doing is we're lowering standards to forward a political agenda in a place that has no politics whatsoever. Like either the switch is on or the switch is off.
Yeah.
Like it's just a yes-no reality, and the plane flies or the plane doesn't fly. But they're wanting to turn it into a story about a meta-narrative and blah, 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 blah. So the point is that the more that happens everywhere, the less any of your degrees are worth anything, because you went to learn how to cut people open, but instead you learned how to be in safe places and talk about, reparations or whatever, right?
Wow.
And so you're not really learning the things you're supposed to learn.
Yeah.
So why would you go be indebted to that system as a system collapses when there are things that we do need to learn and hold on to desperately?
And just
like how to maintain a house. It's not easy. It's not automatic. I'll tell you that.
And to see the value of human life as a priority.
Yeah.
And that's what we've lost. We've been we've allowed them to take from us, is that humanity is so valuable. And I'm not by myself. I impact each person that I am near. Who is my neighbor?
Like, there's this ancient pride in man, which is that his sons would do better than him. Mm-hmm. And that all of his life is to be a platform for his son's life. And that's just not even here.
No.
I mean, I'm pretty sure some of the elites with their super trusts of billions of dollars, well, maybe not after this week, I'm pretty sure those elites have it figured out. I'm pretty sure Hunter Biden, he was brought along the gravy train. It was all about lifting up. I mean, the fact that before Joe became president, both of his sons are highly enmeshed in international politics through the state of Delaware, that's not accidental. Right. So there are people who still realize that, but they've really convinced the majority of us Christians it's a waste of our time to pass on our heritage to our children.
Yeah.
And we just did a whole thing about money. It really isn't about money. It's about your house name. And everyone's all into Harry Potter. Oh, I'm Gryffindor. I'm Ravenclaw. Okay. Well, what are you really?
Yeah.
Anything? Or just a fan, right? You're just an automaton parroting what they tell you to parrot. So, yeah. I think all those things are tied together, and the detachment of children from their families in the collegiate sphere is one of the times when they are most disoriented in terms of their identity, most vulnerable to attack from the outside. That's why having local congregations where there are universities and campus ministries is pretty important. Yeah. Although, how much of a losing battle are they fighting? And it's worth asking those who've been in those trenches for a long time, and especially looking at those that are successful and have kind of ongoing impact elsewhere. So I'm thinking of one specifically at the one at Memorial at Minnesota. they got people that like go back there, like they live there forever because they don't want to leave the congregation. That's their college congregation. And, or people that will travel away and come back because it just makes such an impact on their lives. And the people that come out of that congregation end up being huge support structures to other congregations they go to. But that's not every campus ministry.
No.
That's not every campus ministry. So what are they doing differently there? You know, I think that's an important question. But yeah, very clear. Women are incredibly intelligent, fully capable of being educated. In fact, your wife is more value to you if she's educated. You want her to be as educated as possible in as many things as you don't know as possible, because that way the two of you can like be more together, right? That's super valuable. But is $100,000 of debt slavery so she can be a vet tech the best choice, right? That vet tech probably doesn't cost that much. But point being again.
Never mind. So
she can be a deaconess. $100,000 in debt so you can be a deaconess. Oof. God bless you. God bless you.
It's tough. So
you must pray the prayer of a girl often because poverty is on your doorstep.
It's been a recent realization how much I have right at my fingertips to do. And the good. So I wash my kids' clothes so that my children can grow to an age where they can be wed and have children. And so I'm washing my children's clothes for my grandchildren. You know, like it's not just about what's here right now. Like all these little acts of service, they mean something. I look into good nutrition today for my child who has food allergies so that my great grandchild maybe won't have food allergies. You know? Right. So yeah, the stay-at-home mother. I don't know if anyone gets that. All the people we've talked about carnivore, that we're carnivore for our grandkids and great grandkids. Like that's really what it's about. I don't think you would understand because I was in this position. I did not understand what allergies were before I had a child who had allergies, like life and death. Yeah. I just don't think, I think too often as Americans, we look at food as something that it's my right. McDonald's, like it's my way every day, or whatever their little slogan is. I think it's your way right away at Burger King. No, well, McDonald's has a new one on Spotify. And it's so lame because, I'm just going to side tangent for a second. They talk about how they have this new deal so you can go and bring your friend to McDonald's. And they're like, well, and if your friend is you, then you can take yourself. And it's like, that's just... So I stopped and I talked to the kids about like, okay, well, let's think about what just happened there. They're taking us not only away from our families, but now they're telling us we don't need friends. Like, we are totally isolating ourselves as a society. Yeah. But the idea that nutrition and epigenetic nutrition is generational. Yes, if you cut your hand off, your kid can still be born with a hand. But if you mess with your DNA, your kid's going to get some of that DNA issues. And it can resolve itself too. And again, with this being shown. So like, it really isn't about whether or not I like this or that. Right. It's about seeing how you and I, health-wise, had far earlier problems than our parents did. And our kids were having those problems like out of the womb. Yeah. And now we're able to see our kids begin to thrive, and that we believe that 2 generations down, we're going to be giving birth to Nephilim, that they're going to be like these ridiculous humans again, or maybe at least that their epigenetics will have turned off some of those hyperallergenic, toxic overreactions that a non-working liver and pancreas, because of sugar overload, never lets you really deal with, right? And so, anyway, that's a tangent. I don't want to get too far into that, but like, it's the same idea. Exactly. Is that we're not really thinking about today
we're thinking about
I'm not trying to hold on to
generations
today.
down, and we're believing that they matter because they matter, and that like life today is about that.
Yeah.
I am going to die, but they'll be here. And what I want is for them to believe and have the faith. And so I want all of our life to be tailored toward encouraging them to that end, right?
Yeah.
And that means then today isn't about great things today. It's as simple as we got to get those geese washed.
Yep.
Because if the Fisk clan 3 generations down is going to reinvent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, well, then we got to get going. Got to start building those walls, right? And but that kind of dream is really what we're doing. Like, I don't know. I don't know which grandchild will, or if any of them will really hold on to it, or whether jiu-jitsu will just be the way they dance on they'll pull out a mat at the barbecue and just roll, and it's just dancing, because it can be at a certain level, which is really amazing. It doesn't matter to me. What we want to do, though, is establish these patterns that are going to make us a people, and that you don't make your children a people by giving them to another tribe.
Right.
And that is what a university is. It's a really powerful tribe. So, you might get some benefits from joining another tribe. Alliances aren't always wrong. But see your house as a house, as of old, and ask, what does it take for this house? We don't have a lot of money. I don't even have any land, but I got a name. I got a faith. I got a God. Like, how about sojourners as we are, we walk with a little less attention to what I can build now and more, who are my grandkids going to be? And my prayers begin tuning that one right away. And then from where my prayers show me how to walk, start taking action on that.
Yeah. And the only way for our grandchildren to know the faith is for us to instill that heavily into our children. So the time that it takes is way more than we realize.
The attention that they desire is...
The attention that they deserve. I mean,
the attention that they desire,
little people,
is time consuming. And if we have a shortage of anything these days, it's attention. Too much going on. Well, don't do that. You're watching today, but you asked this question last week. Could you speculate about how many students entering St. Louis or Fort Wayne LCMS seminaries are somewhere on the C-PTSD spectrum and don't know it?
Oh.
That's a fun one. I've not heard the phrase or the word spectrum used with C-PTSD. That's an interesting thought, because I think spectrum implies, say with autism, that you have high functioning and low functioning versions of the diagnosis. And I suppose that's possible with C-PTSD. I definitely, as someone who, I believe I struggle with this, and I have known others who do, I think I'm pretty high functioning in that my life is not falling apart at the seams. And I know people with this who are sabotaging themselves all over the place. So, so I guess there's a spectrum, if you want to call it that. But the thing about it is, it's not like autism. The key component of C-PTSD is flashbacks. Flashbacks are emotional events that disorient you so that you're living a past in the present, projecting past emotions onto present people. I couldn't tell you how many entering students might have this. Probably the same amount as the regular population that have it, something like that, maybe a slightly higher level. Now, if you're asking me a different question, what percentage of pastoral candidates, past and future, have some diagnosable social issues? It is a strangely large percentage of us. I don't know if that's bad or good. I don't know that the seminaries are unaware of this. I don't know that they haven't tried to do things about this. It's a thing. And certainly we do have within our ministerium a wide array of what could only be called misbehaviors when guys come together as pastors, and some of these behavior patterns, they certainly do look like, I think it's actually more like spectrum disorder than C-PTSD in many cases. But I don't know. I'm
What's
not
a spectrum
well,
disorder?
I mean, autism. I was trying not to offend
okay.
anybody who's autistic by
Sorry.
saying it the wrong way. I love everyone, and those of you who get angry about autism and other people aren't helping your cause. I'm just going to say that, right?
No.
Like, because I didn't talk about it right. You've never had like this, like the helicopter mom who's just like goes after you because you said spectrum.
I have not, but I listened to, I used to listen to stand-up comedians that were clean, and yeah. It's a thing.
So
evidently.
is it likely that at our seminaries, the young men that are going into seminaries are suffering from many of the same social disorders which young men everywhere are suffering from? Yeah, they're not special. And in some ways, maybe there's more because they're a self-selecting group who are trying to overcome something, usually, and also believe they know better, usually. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. And it's not like I disclude myself from that being in my background. So, I think you can expect to find a large number of dysfunctional psyches, especially then given the fact that that is not part of our Christian tradition to face the spiritual battle of personal psychology.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that pastors should be psychologists, that the job of the pastor is to be your counselor. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that Christianity is the rebirth of the soul, and the rebirth of the soul involves repentance over those things which bring harm to the neighbor. And that means at a certain point coming to terms with the fact that my need to have everything in order like this makes me yell at you, and that's wrong. And I should stop doing that, especially since I'm a pastor now, right? Like, so there's a lot of that need out there. I don't think that the Bible doesn't address these things. I just don't think it addresses it in Paul, usually.
Well, and back to what we were just talking about with regards to the importance of family, the importance of mothers being home. Mm-hmm. We are, for the first time, seeing the results of a predominant mindset where the mother gets a job and the kids go to daycare. And that does have an impact. And one of the things so there, I think, are two things that results in C-PTSD: abuse and abandonment. Mm-hmm. The level of the abandonment, I think, will also determine your ability to cope with it.
Probably.
So if you were sent to a foster home, that's going to have a very different impact.
Your walk's going to be as unique as you are.
Than if you still had dinner with your father every night.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably
true.
You'll
have a little bit of grounding.
I don't know, because one of the lines out of the Walker book is like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to paraphrase him. As someone who was beaten regularly from a young age, when I counsel people who were only neglected by their family that they stayed with, I feel bad for them. Okay. He feels bad for me, the guy who got beat. He thinks I'm in a worse spot. That's okay. It's validating, honestly. It makes my pain feel a little bit better. I can embrace my pain when I'm like, all right, yeah, it was that bad. And if someone had just hit me, I would have known they were bad. Yeah. The problem was I didn't know.
Yeah, it's sneaky because you're like, they say they love me.
They must be righteous. Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So the violence actually exposes a place for the strength to grow self-identity in resistance, whereas I just had the floor pulled out from me.
But all that being said, those are still the two ways that C-PTSD
correct.
Occurs.
Shocking traumatic abuse and entire emotional abandonment of an infant. The abuse can happen later, although still often for it to manifest as C-PTSD, it does need to start pretty young and under 3. Before the memories are setting in, there are traumatic events that the child can't process, and so they are buried, they are removed from memory, they're removed from reality, and then that's what the flashbacks are, is that's trying to get out later. Okay. Right? So
my point is, I think that I think it's probably way more prevalent than we realize.
I think, so I was going to say this.
Especially
I'm pretty
in
convinced
our
that
boys.
CPTSD is incredibly prevalent just in 20 and 30-year-olds right now, more than we realize. And it, in that sense, to have it be on a spectrum of sorts, the flashback component, you don't even have to have the whole thing, but the fact that many 20 and 30-year-olds are living on emotions of the past that have been repressed, they are unaware, that are bursting out of them in the present. I think that's pretty observable. And that's a component of CPTSD, right? So
I can't even imagine what the young people, like the tiny little people who lived through 2020 with the abandonment of a facial expression. Like, I don't know what that will do when they're in their 20s and 30s, or what it will manifest as, because it already did what it's going to do. But what will it manifest as? Because I think we had two things going against us in like your generation and then a little bit lower. Was the television became something that was consistently on, and then video games.
Yeah, I saw
we
something
had-
yesterday that also there was intentional discouraging of fathers from physically touching their sons. Like in the 70s, there was professional discouragement of fathers showing physical affection, and that the Post said this happened again in the 90s, but it didn't matter as much then, because by then the ones who'd been not touched were becoming fathers who were not going to touch.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have this like non-physical father who is a specter kind of, right? And then the father's touch is a huge bastion of comfort for the child. It's the strength of safety, right? And
then on top of that, you had the mothers going and being career women.
Right.
And so,
right. So you have a lot of emotional abandonment.
Yeah.
Although I think many of those mothers would come home and, God willing, would still care about the emotional needs of the child. And so that can limit the impacts. But I don't know. I think that anyone who's going into the pastoral ministry does themselves a favor if before they assume they don't have any traumas they're trying to escape in the ministry. They assume they probably do, and they figure out what it is, and then they don't worry about it. They repent of it and work on it, right? Don't think it disqualifies you. Just what disqualifies you is if you can't manage it and you get out and you ruin your life, which plenty of guys do. Plenty of congregations have all manner of things go on. And to be fair, it's not always the pastor's fault. There's plenty of people with these issues in the congregations and all that. So, but I wouldn't want to speak to anything too specifically.
no.
But we pastors, we are a bunch of weirdos, and it's not all bad.
No.
I mean, we looked at this last week though. We're supposed to be well thought of by outsiders, so it is a burden upon the pastor to try not to be a weirdo, like completely. You can be weird in the ways the Bible says be weird, right? But don't just be weird. Work on camouflaging yourself, so you're kind of just an average Joe with most people, right? You can be a cool average Joe, but just maybe avoid the Star Trek conventions. Let's move on to another question here. We got two more. Psalm 73 asks, what part did Gnosticism play in the formation and adoption of the creeds? This is a cool question, but you gotta know what Gnosticism is in order to answer this question. And the trick about Gnosticism is that it's not a thing. It is a catch-all of many things. So in the ancient church, most of the false teachings that we know existed, they're named for the teacher who taught them, right? So you got Arianism, and you've got Marcionites, and you've got these different groups, Patripassian. You got these different groups. But Gnosticism is more of a spirit that kind of hovers behind a lot of it and is highly tied to Greek philosophy's distinction between the soul and the body. and presents the idea generally that the spirit is good and the body is bad. Okay? That the spirit, the soul, the inner light would be the way they would talk about such things, which is a piece of God, usually, is good, but it struggles in this flesh, and that struggle is to be unleashed from this flesh and raised to a higher state. Now, you can cut through a lot of mess if you just realize, oh, it's Hinduism. It's ancient Hinduism with a Christian veneer. So what the Gnostics did was they came along and they're like, well, Hinduism's losing, but if we just say that Jesus teaches it, now all these people believe us. Ha-ha. And so Gnosticism was a movement that kind of borrowed or veneered Greek, quote unquote, Hinduism. It's not Hinduism, it's different, but they're kind of the same thing. Veneered it with some Christianity to try to slow the spread of Christianity. And as a result, led to a lot of false versions of Christianity, the most famous of which is Arianism and its denial of Jesus as God. He's a son of God, that's fine, just not God. That's different. The Father is God only and things like that. And of course, that is what the Nicene Council was there to deal with, among many other things like Marcion's fake Bible and a bunch of other stuff. But the Nicene Constantinopolitan, I think I said that wrong, Council, Constantinopolitan, is that right? I don't know. Constantinopolitan. The Niceno whatever. It was in Constantinople later that they finished what they started at Nicaea. That creed is there to stop Arius' teaching on the lack of true divinity in Jesus. And it all has to do with this word of one substance, which this is a fun story, so I'm going to tell it because this is kind of the way the story goes, okay? A little movie version of it here, right? But, they're there for weeks for this council, and they're arguing this and that, and there's political stuff involved, but it's time on the floor to talk about, is Jesus God? Or is Jesus the Son of God? And these are two opposing ideas, okay? Of course, the ones who say Jesus is God say he's also the Son, but it doesn't matter. The other ones say he's only the Son. And they're going back and forth and back and forth. He's like this, he's not like this, he's like this, he's like this. And Constantine, the emperor, is sitting listening to this because this is effectively a political council. It's there for his empire, among other things. And he's listening, and finally he says to them, oh, you mean he's homoousios, which is not a biblical word, okay? So he's hearing them argue with biblical words. He's like this, he's not like this. And he goes, oh, homoousios, like this should fix it all. This is what everyone's trying to say. This is the word that answers the problem. And the Orthodox side goes, yes, and the heretic goes, no. And from that point on, all the Orthodox are like, homoousios, because they couldn't say yes to it, because Arius couldn't say yes to it. And they grabbed that word, and it became the heartbeat center. You look at it, it's at the center of the Nicene Creed, of one substance with the Father. And so that indeed is an anti-Gnostic move, right? And so, why could Jesus not be ultimately true God? It has to be the Son of God because he took on flesh. God cannot himself become one with creation, right? So that's the Gnostic premise again, because God is spirit, creation is matter. Matter is not good. It's at best flawed. And at worst, it's in fact bad and must be escaped from, right? So how much did Gnosticism affect? A lot. How much does it continue to affect us? A lot. I'm going to die and go to heaven. I can't wait to be in heaven forever and ever. You mean without a body? Yes, I guess. Oh, see, that's kind of Gnostic thinking, right? How about I can't wait for the resurrection because my body will be purified, right? You can see the influence there. And of course, Eastern philosophy and again, Hinduism and New Age movements, they're all kind of versions of the same thing. The big difference would be that ancient Gnosticism pretended to be Christianity, whereas the new stuff isn't necessarily, although it's out there, plenty of it out there. In one sense then, Gnosticism is the religion that's always lurking in your heart. It's always in your flesh. Somehow deep inside, I'm really good and the problem is just the world. And if I just find the pureness in my heart, then I can transcend, and when I die, I'll become a butterfly or whatever, right? I mean, it's just all spins on the same attempt to avoid the curse, really. One more question with half hour to go. Catboy Sola says, I'm dealing with some folks I want to ask me Why do you believe that Jesus is the Christ? Right? You're asking me to answer that, right? As opposed to you want to ask them that? I'm not sure. But Frisbee thought it'd be good for me to say, why is Jesus the Christ? And the answer is, it's the resurrection, silly. That's why Jesus is the Christ. He's not dead. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know that there's really another answer to that. I mean, you could make the argument that, well, because he's the Son of God, begotten from all eternity, but how do I know that, right? You want me to make the case. There is one sign given to the generation in which he came, as the sign of Jonah, 3 days, 3 nights. He did it. He said before, we're about to make this turn in Mark where he's going to start telling them he's going to die. Right? He's got all these crowds around him. He's going to start telling them he's going to die. And Mark says, and he told them openly. So the idea is he's talking in front of crowds, right? He's like, oh, by the way, they're going to kill me. And then I'll rise from the dead. Like, that's it. Just the whole nutshell. There's nothing more than that. I mean, we can talk about grace. We can talk about the Spirit moving your heart. These things happen. These are true. But it all hinges on, is the tomb empty or not? And because the tomb is empty, because his body is risen from the dead, that changes everything. Well, how do you prove that? How do I prove he's risen from the dead? Okay. Well, if you want to play that game by the rules of history, like, how do I know anything happened before I saw it? Right? Without seeing it, how do I know anything happens? Anything.
Oh, that's written down.
Yeah, or someone tells you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but from like before our generation, right? Yeah, the history it's got to be written down. So does that mean that because I found something old and written down, therefore it's true? No, not necessarily, but it was written down. And so someone thought it was true. So then you start asking questions that test the validity of what was said. And what you find for the New Testament era is like, it wasn't just like the New Testament's all we got. Like, there's a lot of information from that time period. And when you start then asking questions about, say, well, let's say Jesus didn't rise from the dead. Postulate. Where did Christianity come from? You find there's just no way to explain it.
Yeah. You
start digging into the facts of the event. Who convinced 5,000 Jews to stop worshiping on Sunday? I mean, they just killed a guy because he healed people on the Sabbath, and now they're all going to worship on Sunday. What could make them change their mind, right? Or Saul of Tarsus, let's murder people because they like Jesus. Oh, I changed my mind. He's God. What made you change your mind? Well, I talked to him. He's risen. What am I going to say? I have visions sometimes. It's weird. But, yeah, there was a thing with scales on my eyes. Look, baptism works, okay? Like that's Paul's argument, right? Like, I saw him. So the witnesses that do exist from the time seem to have no other explanation but the resurrection. Now, do I expect this to convince the skeptic? No. But as the Christian who I am, I should be like, well, there it is. It's just not even that hard. He's risen from the dead. That's what makes Christianity what it is. That's what makes him not Buddha and not Muhammad. He is the Christ. He is the son of David who died, and behold, he lives forever and ever. Changes the world. If that's not true, Christians are stupid, and our religion is stupid, and we should instead go out and make as much money as we can and get drunk and high and crazy and licentious because you're going to die tomorrow. So you might as well get what you can while you can. And that's Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 saying that. That. Eat, drink, tomorrow we die. Oh, wait. But he's risen. The tomb's empty. And the fact is that same good spell, that gospel that he is risen, is the thing that has the Spirit that makes you just believe it. And so there is a testimony in the heart. I know that I believe. I have doubts, but there's no question I believe because it's here every day and I say it and it just comes out and I don't want to not believe it. So I know I believe, right? Well, that's the testimony of the Holy Spirit. But do I want to rely on that as my foundation? No, I'm going to rely on the fact that Jesus is risen from the dead. And this is the testimony given from the very beginning that the seed would crush the serpent's head. You want to go believe in some guy who sat under a tree and figured out how to avoid suffering by becoming nothing? Like, okay, Buddha, Miss Buddha, or an Aryan heretic who started a war clan and then, began to retain certain elements of Judeo-Christian ancient legalism, but with the sword. Okay, that's Muhammad, sort of, but like the question, if you're going to ask the question, what makes a religion true, right? You have two options. One is that it seems true. You like it. Okay. And I think Christianity passes that test also. But the other option is that like the religion is based upon reality. It's based upon an event. What made it true before Jesus rose from the dead? I mean, if you read the Psalms, you should know. They're all about it. You know, the waters fled at your presence. Right? They crossed the waters on the Red Sea on dry ground. That was how they knew God existed. And again, God says it too. Like, I did this for you, right? And you didn't believe me. I fed you in the wilderness, all this stuff. So, I don't know. You know, what are you wanting this argument for? You know, who are you wanting this argument for? I think, like on a somewhat different level, what people need is not for me or you to explain to them why Jesus is the Christ. Excuse me. What they need is a confrontation with the words of Jesus. And so anyone who's really going to say, hey, Jonathan, can you prove to me Jesus is the Christ? I think where I want to get at the end is no. But you should pick your gospel. I don't care which one. Pick one. They're all good. And you should read this gospel and read it all in one sitting. And at least believe that he was a real guy and said this stuff, and then reckon with that. Like, wow, I mean, dude was either crazy or God. And
yeah.
So I think there's something there. Like, you're not going to be able to win anyone to the faith by winning, right? But what you can do is you can testify to what you have heard, how it has impacted you. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want everyone standing up in front of church saying Jesus changed my life this way every week, but no, really, it should change your life too, right? So when you're talking to a friend, you can be like, look, I used to be like this, and thank Jesus for grace. He's risen from the dead. He's my king. I got a king. I got a kingdom. I got something to live for. I got forgiveness. I'm under grace. Like, here, you should read Mark, rather than like, here's all the reasons why, James the just. I mean, the apologetic's fine. It's not going to convert. I don't think the apologetic converts, but the story does. Yeah. I've told this story a couple places, but I don't know if I've done it here. Chatting with a compatriot pastor from far away when we were at a conference recently, and he was just telling me about this convert he has 3 years ago now, but who was a female, upwardly mobile professional in a city, who went to a Hindu, who went to a local concert, just happened to be St. Matthew's Passion. Didn't think much of it. It's just, it's classical music. I like classical music. And she came out a Christian. It's the whole gospel. I mean, the passion. It's the whole passion. So the words of God being sung, she had no commitment to it whatsoever. She walks into a concert and Bach from the grave converts her with the gospel of Matthew set to music. So like maybe a little more of just, hey, read the gospel.
Yeah.
Let's not argue. Let's just go read it. Maybe it's the word of God. Maybe the fact that it is the word of God means we've underestimated how powerful it is. And we think we got to give our little addendums to everything. Holy Bible set to a melody. Makes me want to play it again. Nothing but a gospel. Nothing like a gospel song. Who's the name? Who's the artist that does that? That one rocks. It really does. You got like a little country in your twang in your rock.
It's not Big Daddy Weave, is it?
No.
Okay.
No. He's one of these, like, he's very white and a little overweight with a big beard. Very.
Oh, he's not Zach Williams.
No, it's definitely not Zach Williams.
I don't know them. Oh, did we? No. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm leaving you.
Yeah, you are.
Leaving you in a bad spot.
I don't know if I can get it playing. I'll get like dinged.
Yeah, you don't want it to start playing. That would be weird.
Well, I kind of do. We'll see what happens. Here it is. Rhett Walker. There it goes. YouTube on YouTube. There it is. Anyway, I'm going to pause it. You don't have to listen to it, but if you like a little twang in your rock and you don't mind, I don't know. It's not for church. But man, it makes me want to sing. Holy Bible to a melody. We need more. The point is, just putting the word of God to music, Bach, it's got power, and maybe a little more of that, and a little less of our words. What was it? Oh, man's word. I had a thought a couple weeks ago, and it's like it was man's word versus God's word, and the idea man's word just continues to multiply and confuse. And that God's word just remains. Right? So it doesn't need to grow. It just is. And man's always adding, and then it just gets darker. And it doesn't mean don't add words. It means go back to the font over and over and over again. Right?
I had a strange experience this week. I mean, it wasn't strange. It was wonderful. I needed to know how to spell a word, like just confirm, is it this way or this way? And I typically will go and grab the dictionary and look it up. Sometimes I'll grab my phone and just start writing it into text, and then you will get the different options. I didn't have either of those things, but I had my Bible, and I was like, oh, I know this word is in the Bible. So I got to use the Bible as my dictionary.
As your dictionary? That's funny.
It's kind of fun. Yeah. So that was it.
Yay. That was fun. We got 20 minutes here still to talk about whatever, or we could end it early. My poor back.
Yeah. How's it feeling after your break?
Well, it helped to walk. It was just super stiff from this chair is not the best chair for me to be sitting in with it like this. And so it was just really stiff. Felt pretty good as I got upstairs and
I'm really surprised that you can do that with your legs today. Like, have you been able to do that for this whole time? Oh, see, yeah, that
this
I
is
don't
the side,
force it.
And it can get there. I can feel the stretch over here. Or is my over on this side now? Like it's all the way across, but
so
I'm so much better than yesterday.
A back injury caused by a knee injury. Crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all a testimony to how intricately connected our body parts are.
Yeah. For me, it's a lesson in trusting in the power of God to heal. And I don't mean miracles. I just mean, it's kind of amazing that the body does. But you do need to rest. Mm-hmm. You got to let it be. In fact, I had the thought, Superman would have been so much cooler if he had to recover.
Huh.
Like he could take the punching, the beat, right? But he'd need like a couple days to like heal still.
Okay.
And it hurt. Like he's in bed hurting.
Yeah.
Like he's Superman. He can recover, but it's not like just free punches. Like, oh, you punched me, I punch back. Right?
Yeah.
Superman would have been way cooler with
he, like, I feel like Batman kind of is that way, right?
And some of the later Batman stuff.
They brought it out in the movies.
Yeah, because they show him getting older. And as he's aging, he can't keep up. Yeah. But because he's just a guy with a lot of money. And Superman is not just a guy.
Yeah, he's kind of an alien.
He's an alien. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, E.T.
Huh. So you think it would be what... Actually, this kind of goes back to that conversation we had last week about heroes and how we see reasons to keep going in the heroes we read about as they overcome trial. Mm-hmm. We then can put ourselves in their position and say, well, then if he can do it, I can too. And you kind of get a little bit of grit from it, from their story. So you think that Superman would have spoken more deeply to you as a hero if he actually had to show the impact of what he went through?
I think he would have spoken more deeply to a lot of people. Superman was very successful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, people love Superman, but there's a large section of comic book audiences that don't like him, and the reason is because it's just too easy. Mm-hmm. And most of his storylines had to keep. I mean, they got like multiple universes going on because it got boring. You couldn't tell stories about him because he just wins. It's just what he does. But for me, it was more about, as I'm like saying to myself, Jonathan, just stay still for a few days and watch the amazing power of nature that God made you do what it's going to do, and then just thinking about how, wow, I wonder what it was like for Superman the day after a fight. Oh, wait, he was fine. Oh, that's lame. Like, just the recovery part of it is, and he could recover faster, but he would have had to.
Yeah, so you saw it out in that moment. You saw it out like that hero to keep you focused on, I can do this. I can get through, because he got through. He was victorious, so I can be victorious.
No, he didn't.
And you're like, no, wrong hero, because he just started out victorious and was victorious. Like, they should have put the end at the beginning of the story and been done with it.
Yeah, right. His name is Superman. He never loses. The end. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Seeking out the hero to aspire to be like, yeah, definitely, I guess. What we're trying to do is make sense of our own story. Exactly. And so we look for other stories that mirror it, so we can like use that as our framework. I posted again on RevFisk.com or Substack, the RevFisk Substack, another on fiction, the third on the on fiction series, and kind of dealing with this very same idea that you write fiction to try to deal with psychology that you don't know you need to deal with. Interesting. And that if you can know that's what you're doing, you'll stop sabotaging your own work. Because the reason you're sabotaging your writing, not doing it, is so you don't figure out what it is you've been hiding from yourself that you're writing the story to overcome. So on the one hand, you have to come to terms with the reality outside the story, and part of the way you're going to do that is not let yourself sabotage the story and get the story out. And again, you can find that at RevFisk.com. It's on fiction number 3. And that
I'm really curious then, because I read part of Earth, but I'm like, why can't Earth get done?
Well, the reason is in the card that's on the bottom right of the square, sitting right up there. Okay. One day at a time. Yeah, but it is self-sabotage as part of it. And so then once you realize you're self-sabotaging, well, how do you stop that? And there's the brute force, which is just write anyway, which I'm going to try that one too. Yeah. But the other one is to really zero in. Okay, so what's the question that I'm avoiding by avoiding writing? Right. That's where my mind went. Like, why isn't Earth done? Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Okay. I think, actually, well, I'd love to talk with you about this. Yeah. I can different context. No, I can say it though. I think I can say it. I'm mad at myself.
Is the character in Earth mad at himself?
He probably needs to be. Okay.
Is he too much of a Superman?
Or needs to stop being. He's not. If anything, early in the book, I feel he's too much of a pawn of fate. He doesn't have any agency. He's swept along.
He's not. He doesn't have any skin in the game.
No, but he'll get it. And part of the story is, it's a coming of age story. So he's gonna grow. But that may be part of it. I don't want to give away the end of the story.
Well, you don't need to.
There is, people who are reading it. It starts off in a pretty standard fantasy-ish way. It's gonna stay that way, kind of. But where it's going to go then will be a very different place by the end. And so the battle that this main character's got to fight, it's not about him being mad at himself, but it is about why I'm mad at myself. And realizing that the reason I'm mad at myself is a childish reason from childhood that once let go, the monster isn't quite the monster he thought it was. And so that's the fight. But that's not as easy as like, well, today I decided to let go of my trauma. Like I could, but it is. You got to do that every day for a long time and continually face the struggle of it. And
isn't it interesting how much we try to hold on to it? Like, and let it back in. There have been a few opportunities recently for me where it's like, you have freedom. but I keep trying to figure out how to get the chains back in some way or another.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I have to stop myself and actually say, no, you like the freedom. Don't forget.
Right.
Don't walk into that shackle again.
Right.
Isn't that odd?
The flesh likes false gods. Oopsie.
I think I think that if we go to the psychology of traumatic experiences, wanting to relive it so that you can manipulate the outcome and be the savior of yourself. I think that's a big part of why we want to walk back into the shackles.
Because the salvation story, not the one that Jesus saves you, but the one in which you recreate the epic trauma and then beat it, is the habit that that's the sin to the third and fourth generation is what it is. It's a fleshly attempt to justify. And so it just recreates more problems.
You being mad at yourself, you said earlier in the show, I'm not an angry person. And then I stopped and I realized, no, actually, wait a minute. I am.
Yeah.
And maybe you're not intentionally angry at others, but you have a lot of anger at yourself. And to avoid this self-anger, it gets pointed outward at other things. Maybe not people,
while I'm internally berating and doing these things to myself, someone else says something, it appears to be more of the same self-attack, and I say, why are you attacking me?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be like, hey, I'm a nice person asking this. I'm like, why are you attacking me? And then I'm attacking you, right? And so it is, that was a big yesterday moment. I'm mad at myself, and I have been since as long as I can remember. And it's all about trying to earn love, really. You know, if only I could have. Why am I not good enough to be loved? So, but it must be me, you know. And the Joe Rogan dog thing. Oh, I'm ashamed of myself. You know? Like, no, that's actually like my experience for a lot of childhood, I think, and so to know that I still have this, like, if I'd been a better baby, I would have been loved. Self-anger, this like hovering there all the time.
Yeah.
I think admitting that is a huge part of what has made Earth be frozen where it is. Yeah. I mean, if the bad guy in your story that you're writing is the bad guy of your psyche,
do you really want to encounter him?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
When you put the skin on the demon, what's it going to look like? And are you ready? So, and I mean, I wrote the piece on RevFisk because, hallelujah, praise to Jesus. I'm ready if he's ready. Like, let's do it. Let's do this battle. Let's find it. Because I'm sick of beating myself up. Sick of it. And a big part of beating myself up is I never finished any fiction novels. Oh, stupid reason to beat yourself up. But
you did. You finished one.
I did.
You read it to me.
I did. But it didn't count. Wasn't good enough and stuff. So.
But it was finished. The cross.
Yeah.
Was finished.
Yeah. Do you remember there was the lady that I gave English lessons to in Hungary? Mm-hmm. I've told you this.
I don't know what you're going to tell me about her, but I specifically remember her and your story. Yeah.
So I lived in Hungary for 6 months, taught English at a school, and then tutored English on the side to make a little extra money to afford as a college student effectively to live in Europe. And the lady was working on it for her professional life in some way. She was very, very competent in it. And when she found out that I was a writer, a story writer, she wanted the book. And so I gave it to her and she read the whole thing and she gave me this very detailed response to it. I mean, she engaged the work. But she was vehement that the ending was wrong. And I don't even remember. I really don't. I know that there's the main character, Jack, and there's a guy named Sonny Myers. Mm-hmm. And Sonny dies at the end of the book. And what she said is, Sonny can't die. That's your child. It's your inner child. He can't die. I didn't know what she was talking about. But now I'm like, huh. Yeah, maybe my inner child shouldn't die. I don't know, right? I don't have that story anymore. I was, not because of her commentary, because of other commentary from those I love. I didn't think it was worth saving. It was trash for the heap, and so ought to be treated as such, and now it's gone. Although dust is, it's got a lot of it there, but the best of it.
That's crazy. You didn't save it at all?
Nope.
Wow.
When it's not good enough, a certain point, all it does is bring you pain when you look at it. There's no fixing it. Or, well, there was an attempt to fix it, which is this one. And this one's pretty cool. That one's, I mean, if I wasn't going to work on Earth, because I'd committed to it, to you out there in listener land, this one's closer to finished. It just only is the first part of a longer series, and so it wouldn't really be finished. But, like, I finished getting all the way through the opening section, which I've maybe rewritten like 7 times, including a really bad version that everyone who gets Mad Mondays remembers being confused by. Like, I got to a point, though, where I got where I knew I had to go, and there's like 10 more chapters. And I started reading. I didn't change a word for like 3 pages. I'm like, oh, I guess it's better than I thought it was.
Nice.
But I haven't gone back to look at it because Earth is the agenda, and Hebron Collegium is the agenda. We haven't talked about the Hebron Collegium. Stop the White Noise is brought to you by the Hebron Collegium, a gap year Bible school for men here in Lakewood Hills, Illinois, just outside of Rockford. You can set your trajectory for righteousness, learn to pray the Psalms, read the Proverbs, get through the whole Bible twice in a year, try your hand at jiu-jitsu, woodcraft, carnivore diet. You got to learn how to manage a house a little bit and then some. And it's all at a very, very reasonable price. You can reach out at hebroncollegium.com/contact. That's taken a lot more of my energies than fiction stories about my ghosts.
Yeah.
But
it's quite the place these days. It's been fun.
Hebron?
Yeah. It's coming together.
Yeah. Retreat Center, Spiritual Retreat Center here. Again, if you are a man and would like to visit, we'd love to have you, even if you don't plan on attending. 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, get away, read the Bible quietly, have access to a theological library, a lake where you can fish, and many other benefits. So reach out at, again, HebronCollegium.com. While we're on it, you can check out Mad Christianity, Mad Christian Mondays, best newsletter on the internet, up to date. I don't know if there'll be anything about SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, in it this week, but what it will do is it'll put a lot of the universe's news in perspective for you from a Christian understanding. Sign up at madpxm.com, and while you're there, if you have questions you'd like answered on the show, madpxm.com/contact is the way to do that. And before we move on, if you'd like to support what Meridith and I do directly, we do need your help, appreciate your help, thank you for your help. Patreon.com and subscribestar.com, both /RevFisk, or you can find the link to the support on RevFisk.com. Yeah. Which still has a problem with forwarding from WordPress, so you have to click an extra button if you don't put in www. So weird. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm done with the internet. It's going to break.
Yeah.
I hope. No, I don't. Yes, I do.
It'll be weird. It'll be weird.
No, I don't.
Be a little bit like having cars suddenly not work.
Yeah.
You know? Because our society is,
I mean, if the
so
internet goes down, it means the grid has gone down, and that means electricity.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
maybe.
really. I
don't
think so.
You don't think it could, like, stop? You don't think a big company bankruptcy could make other companies?
I mean, only if it hits the grid. You would have to lose electricity in enough key places so that the network could no longer maintain. And even then, you'd still have local networks that would exist.
So what you're saying is it's somewhat its own thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the snowball was formed and then pushed down the hill, and now it's just kind of rolling.
The internet
as
exists.
Long as there's electricity.
The internet exists as
hill.
a network of addresses that makes use of cable and phone lines. Okay. So unless all of those lines become inaccessible, some of it's going to work. Okay. Now I'm not a master of how internet works, but it's not a thing. There is no web. Other than that, there are nodes, there are points that send information out or bounce information, and that you connect to that and get information. That's the web. Okay. So the web, the spider's silk is just the transfer of energy that brings the information back and forth across this star panoply of nodes, and that's what we call the network. And so for that thing to go away entirely, I think you have to have electricity be kind of off. I really do. I really do. Hey, internet, tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, I do not study this professionally, but I'm pretty sure. And so at that point, you're looking at bigger problems than I can't get Netflix, right? You're looking at your well's not working kind of stuff. So
right. It is wild when the electricity goes out, how you're like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, wow. Yeah, the little things. The water doesn't turn on if you're on a well without electricity.
Yeah, the well will run out of water. Yeah, pretty much. Did it turn off right away when our power went? We didn't have power go out.
We didn't have ours go out.
And then over there, it went on right away.
But up the hill, their well was completely done.
Okay.
Like,
so it's not just a matter of
they couldn't access
pulling up. It's also pushing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the stove can be lit with a match if you have a gas stove, but if you're on an electric system,
right,
like they were up the hill as well, it's like that's done too. Yeah.
We had a super chat a while back. I don't know. I don't want to miss it. Those of you who super chat, thank you. It is not cost effective for you, just so you know, but thank you. Texas Don says, the government wants women to get educated and saddled with debt so they can have to work outside of the home, and then they must earn money, and then that can be taxed. Yeah, that's about right. It's kind of pre-communism stuff again. The communists were way further ahead on getting women in the workforce than we were. So, yeah.
And is it Jimmy Oregano?
Down here?
Yeah. Thanks for listening every week.
What does he
glad
say?
you're here.
Listen every week.
Listen every week.
Jimmy Oregano. That's a cool name.
At first I was like, oregano. No.
Oregano.
It's oregano.
All right. So we're going to get out of here. We'll catch you all next week. Of course, you can listen to the show on iTunes, Stop the White Noise. You can also listen to all the sermons there under the saved podcasts. Have you found Brief History of Power? With myself and Dr. Kuhn started a new series this week on the myth of America. Highly worth your time listening to that as well. And I will be speaking at the men's gathering, which is coming up in Indianapolis. Check out that information at mensgathering.us. And also, this coming Labor Day, there is the 3rd annual Sons of Solomon muster here in Lakewood Hills, Illinois, just outside of Rockford. You can stay Sunday night. Contact through sonsofsolomon.net to find out more information if you need help with that. Sunday afternoon also, if you happen to be into jiu-jitsu, there will be an open mat available here. You can join us for that. Prayer vigil Sunday night at St. Paul Lutheran Church, and then the muster downtown, followed by a barbecue lakeside at the Hebron Collegium. Contact sonsofsolomon.net for more information. There are not enough good men. Become one. So get all of that announcing out there, and then I'm going to see if I can pull this all off. I'm going to say Jesus Christ is risen from the dead, and that makes you immortal now. He's not going to be long anyway. I skipped one. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now. He's not going to be long anyway. The water seals it. The food feeds it. This is Christianity. You should think about joining us. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
And don't wallow in the muck with those who have no hope. Lift up your head all the more as you see the day approaching.
Was that worth $1? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?